Chapter 537. On the Heavenly Mansion Planet. 1,000 miles east of the Pill Tower. A red-robed figure stood in front of a large waterfall. The undying immortality peach tree swayed in the wind, and spring water flew out of the cauldron and poured into the immortal tree. 1 day, 2 days, half a month passed, but the undying immortality peach tree still showed no signs of recovering. The mortal world's water couldn't bring the immortal tree back to life. Ning Chen's eyes dimmed. However, after being disappointed so many times, he had learned to accept it. The phoenix shadow appeared and swallowed the immortality peach tree back into its stomach. Ning Chen took out a datura flower seed and threw it into the spring water. In the next moment, the datura flower grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. The black Buddhist flower bloomed, strange and enchanting. Datura flower. Just at this moment, a white-robed figure walked over and looked at the blooming Buddhist flower. Senior Alcate, you're awake. Ning Chen came back to his senses and looked at the white-robed Alcate King. Yes, it's been hard on you these days, said the Alcate King. It's nothing, said Ning Chen. This doesn't seem to be the Central Plains, said the Alcate King. Yes, Ning Chen nodded. After leaving the Immortal Palace, I was accidentally brought to the heavens beyond heaven. This is indeed not the Central Plains, but the Heavenly Mansion Planet. The Heavenly Mansion Planet, muttered the Alcate King. So they were already far away in the heavens beyond heaven. Ning Chen gave a detailed explanation of how he had arrived here. He didn't know how far this place was from the 5 regions. The starry sky was vast, and there were too many starfields and planets. It wouldn't be easy to return. What's your name? Why did you enter the demonic wheel sea? Asked the Alcate King after listening to him. Ning Chen. Ning Chen softly replied. I had no choice but to enter the demonic wheel sea. However, it was unavoidable. 1 day earlier is 1 day later. Tell me the details, said the Alcate King with a frown. Ning Chen hesitated for a moment before giving a simple explanation of what had happened. Were there people from the Alcate dynasty among those people? Asked the Alcate King coldly. I'm not sure. Ning Chen shook his head, not willing to talk about this topic. Senior Alcate, I'm going to Jiaxing Mountain to continue searching for the palanquin. You just woke up, and your body's still of your body, so you should stay here and properly recover. The Alcate King nodded and said, Be careful. Ning Chen smiled and nodded. He waved his hand to put away the green cauldron and walked away. As he watched the young man disappear into the distance, the Alcate monarch's calm eyes flashed with emotion. Although this young man wasn't willing to talk about what had happened that day, it wasn't hard to guess how dangerous it had been. There was no road to heaven and no door to hell. Perhaps, in the midst of despair, there was also a deep disappointment towards the people of the world. The great Xia Jiming Marquis had become a legend of the 5 regions at such a young age. The hardships of his journey were also unimaginable. Devil? It was merely a righteous excuse for the various sects in the world to justify their actions. How could a devil who had never harmed the human world be called a devil? Outside Qihui City, Red Shirt materialized. Looking at Jiaxing Mountain in the distance, he walked forward step by step. According to the Heavenly Saintess, the palanquin should have gone in that direction. Hopefully, they would be able to find traces of the ghost girl. As the sun traveled west, thin clouds covered the sky. The sunlight shone down on the earth, bringing with it a faint warmth. As the red clothes walked past, they disappeared in the blink of an eye. In front of Jiaxing Mountain, Ning Chen stopped and looked up. His figure flashed out again, quickly ascending the mountain. The continuous and majestic mountain range was at least 1,000 feet high and hundreds of miles wide. There was no end in sight. Ning Chen walked all the way into the depths of the mountain range. In a place where there were no traces of humans, he could only see intertwining vines and towering ancient trees. A temple appeared in front of him. Seeing this, Ning Chen quickly walked forward. The temple was built of stone and had been through a lot. Under the erosion of wind and frost, it was gradually showing signs of turning into dust. Ning Chen walked in and saw the statue of the god worshipped in the temple. His eyes narrowed unconsciously. Pluto. The god's face was flawless, noble and holy. His eyes looked down on the world with disdain, without the slightest trace of human emotion. Even though it was just a statue, it made those who looked up feel deeply insignificant. The people of the world didn't know about Pluto, but the great Xia Jiming Marquis, who had fought with the Master of Seven Ultimate Heaven, was very familiar with him. That was why he was so shocked to see the statue of Pluto here. God, Ningchen whispered. After experiencing so many things, he gradually understood why the god who had spent so much effort to create the 5 regions would come to the world twice and destroy the world. In the long years, perhaps the god's patience had been worn away by the ugliness of the world. Ningchen waited in the temple for 7 days. There was only one strange place in this place. If the celestial sedan chair came, it should be here. 7 days passed. When the sun set on the 7th day, outside the temple, ghost qi filled the air. A strong pressure appeared out of nowhere. The red wedding dress was so bright. The red veil covered the face, so he couldn't see it clearly. However, that familiar feeling was unforgettable. The figure that passed by him didn't stop at all. It was as if he couldn't see or hear her. It was like the moon in the water. It was difficult to recreate reality. Luosha waved her hand. Rays of light swept out and stabilized the temple that was gradually turning gray. She stood quietly for a moment, and then turned to leave. Ningchen suppressed the throbbing in his heart, and followed her step by step. Why did the ghost woman come here? In front of the temple, in the vast open space, Luosha stopped and looked at the stars in the sky. The red light around her became more and more dazzling. Where did you go? Luosha softly muttered. Her voice was filled with exhaustion. A moment later, her figure faded and she disappeared. Ningchen took a step forward. He wanted to chase after her, but he lost track of her. Ningchen stood in place. Even if his heart was as firm as stone, at this moment, he felt powerless. Boom! Just at this moment in the distance, heaven and earth trembled. A huge palace rose from the ground. Its powerful aura could be sensed even from thousands of miles away. In an instant, the world was shocked. They all looked toward the palace. The 7 Kills Palace. Within the broken army palace, Lu Qingyi sensed the 7 Kills Palace appear in the distance. Her lips curled. This time, there was finally a good show to watch. At the same time, 2 figures were walking through the wilderness. The middle-aged man in front suddenly stopped. Looking at the 7 Kills Palace, a strange light appeared in his eyes. The time had come quite a bit earlier. It seemed he couldn't wait any longer. Tian Xiang, has he stepped into the chosen realm? Asked Fan Xinghong softly. How could it be that easy? But he's not far away, said Xiao Bieli calmly. Tian Xiang, come to the sacred land. I have something to discuss with you. A figure appeared in the air in front of them. After saying that, he vanished. Xiao Bieli frowned slightly. Looking at the girl behind him, he said, Let's not return to the imperial city. Let's go to the sacred land. Yes. Fan Xinghong nodded and changed directions, heading south with him. Thousands of miles away, in front of the 7 Kills Palace, a young man in 7-colored battle robes walked out. His eyes were sharp, and he held the Forget Cloud Divine Halberd in his hand. Phoenix, I've come to kill you. The man's arrogant and domineering words rang out, shaking the entire world. In Jiaxing Mountain, Ningchen looked at the pressure coming from afar, and squinted his eyes slightly. This palace lord of the 7 Kills Palace was not weaker than a mortal sovereign. A great enemy. It seemed he couldn't afford to not make any preparations. Within the heavenly sanctum's sacred land, a woman with an exceptionally powerful aura stood there. Looking at the figure in her astral soul, the worry on her face was difficult to conceal. Master, the heavenly sanctum's holy maiden respectfully bowed. Has the sword sovereign awakened? Asked the woman. Not yet. But after taking the soul return pill, his soul has stabilized a lot. The heavenly sanctum's holy maiden shook her head. Take good care of him. You can leave now. Yes. The heavenly sanctum's holy maiden stood up and left. Not long after she left, 2 figures appeared in front of the sacred land. The sacred land's guards immediately half-knelt when they saw the person in the lead. Welcome, heavenly minister. No need for formalities. Xiao Bieli spoke, and then he didn't stop at all as he strode forward. Within the sacred land, the woman felt the aura of heavenly minister and turned around to wait. Soon Xiaobieli arrived. Seeing the woman in front of the astral soul, he bowed and said, "Star Sovereign. No need for formalities. I called you here in a hurry, because I have something to discuss with you," said Chao Tianxi. "What is it?" Seeing the rare worry on the Star Sovereign's face, Xiaobieli stood up and asked. "You'll know when you come over," said Chao Tianxi. Xiaobieli walked forward and looked at the astral soul before him. His expression gradually sank. Xiaobieli looked over at the Star Sovereign and asked, "How much time do we have left?" "I've already observed it for many days. According to the speed of this star, it will collide with us in 10 years at most," said Chao Tianxi. "Even a Star Sovereign can't destroy it?" asked Xiaobieli. "This is a vital star. I don't know why it suddenly changed direction and collided with us. If it was a dead star, I might be able to destroy it. But vital stars are protected by the power of laws, so I can't do anything," said Chao Tianxi gravely. "You can't do anything?" asked Xiaobieli with a frown. "Yes." Chao Tianxi nodded. Xiaobieli fell silent. If that was really the case, then 10 years from now would be the end of the world for the heavenly sanctum. Perhaps they would survive, but 90% of the ordinary people would die in that disaster. After thinking for a moment, Xiaobieli slowly asked, "Star Sovereign, can you see the closest vital star to the heavenly sanctum in the astral ocean?" Chao Tianxi waved his hand, and the astral soul life sea in front of him kept changing. After a long time, a beautiful star appeared before them. Within the blue sea, 5 continents bobbed up and down. It was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. Inside the world, Xiaobieli narrowed his eyes. That was the worst possible outcome. All the vital stars in the outer heavens knew that this world was protected by the Nether King's restrictions and formations. It was impossible to break through. However, given the current situation of the heavenly sanctum, if they wanted to save as many people as possible, they could only place their hopes on the nearest vital star. 10 years wasn't a long time. However, with the power of a Star Sovereign and their assistance, it was enough to move most people away. Another problem was that no vital star would welcome outsiders. So before that they could only invade everything. Chapter 538. In the Great Xia Empire of the Eastern Divine Prefecture, after finding out that the Emperor of Northern Meng had gone missing, Xia Qi had mobilized his troops to the north. His army of 300,000 soldiers had returned to Yingui City. They were just waiting for an order to start the war between the two dynasties. Regarding Emperor Xia's northern expedition, the support and opposition of the 6 marquises were evenly split. Kong Yu, Marquis Anling, and Zhongsun Yunxian had sent letters several times, advising Emperor Xia not to send troops so easily. On the contrary, the other 3 marquises fully supported this northern expedition and volunteered. The attitudes of the 6 marquises represented the thoughts of people from 2 different eras. Kong Yu, Marquis Anling, and Zhongsun Yunxian were the most influenced by Marquis Jiming. After experiencing the endless wars and the great tribulation of the gods, they knew that peace was not easy, and did not want to start another war so easily. As for the other 3 marquises, they were at the peak of their lives and longed to expand the territory of Great Xia and create a new foundation. In the Heavenly Mandate Palace, Xia Qi looked at the memorials of the 6 marquises, and a trace of difficulty flashed across his handsome face. Kong Yu was a marquis personally taught by his master, and Zhongsun Yunxian and Marquis Anling were also influential. It was impossible for him not to consider their suggestions. The choice between peace and expanding their territory was a difficult one. "Your Majesty," news came from the southern border. "Princess Xi has set off and may be back soon." A shadow dragon guard appeared and reported. Hearing this, Xia Qi stood up as if he was sitting on a nail, his eyelids twitching. And she was coming back? The shadow of his childhood made Xia Qi break out in cold sweat. In the few years in the Marquis residence, Aunt Shi had beaten him the most. Great Elder Princess has arrived. At this moment, another report came from outside, and the shadow dragon guard immediately left. Not long after, Xia Xinyu walked in. The former most beautiful princess of Great Xia had become more and more beautiful after more than 10 years. Xia Qi's head hurt. Another one that he could not afford to offend had come. However, Although he had a headache, Xia Qi still walked down from the dragon throne and personally went to welcome her. "Aunt Jiu, why are you here?" Xia Qi said with what he thought was the brightest smile on his face. "I came to see you." Xia Xingyu looked at the little guy who had grown up and said softly, "Why, are you still troubled by the northern expedition?" "Yes." Xia Qi rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. "Aunt Jiu isn't here to persuade me to retreat, right?" Xia Xingyu shook her head. "I won't participate in political matters. You've grown up. Whatever decisions you make, whatever consequences there are, you have to bear them yourself. Your Aunt Xi is coming back. If you insist on sending troops, you'll have to go through her first." Xia Qi nodded slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Aunt Jiu, do you think it was right or wrong for me to send troops this time?" Xia Xingyu was silent. After a long time, she softly said, "He once said that there is no absolute right or wrong in this world. However, in terms of war itself, it is definitely wrong." Hearing this, Xia Qi's eyes flashed with a strange light. He knew that although his master was good at fighting, he actually hated war more than anyone else. However, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he missed it, he would never get another chance. He was the emperor of the great Xia dynasty, and did not wish to spend the rest of his life in mediocrity. "You decide whether to send troops or not. I'm just here to tell you that as an emperor, not only must you be good at planning, you must also be good at making decisions. It's impossible to have the best of both worlds. If you keep delaying it, there will never be a result." "Well, it's getting late. I'll go back first." After saying this, Xia Xingyu did not say anything else. A gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face. She immediately turned and walked out of the heavenly mandate palace. In the main hall, Xia Qi looked at the back of the former, and could not help but sigh deeply. It seemed that he had underestimated his aunt in the past. Perhaps his master's brilliance was too dazzling in the past and overshadowed too many people's brilliance. Otherwise, the ninth princess of the great Xia dynasty would not only be stunning in appearance. On the Tianfu planet, the Holy Land issued an edict. Within half a year, all the sects in the world had to send all the sun-scorching star spirit iron to the Holy Land. If anyone disobeyed, they would be killed without mercy. The Star Venerate had personally written the edict, and the celestial minister had issued the edict. The two noblest people on the Tianfu planet had spoken at the same time. All the sects were shocked. Even the emperor of the Tianxiang dynasty had been caught off guard by this sudden news. He had summoned several elders of the imperial family to discuss this matter. No one dared to disobey the edict of the Holy Land. But the sun-scorching star spirit iron was unimaginably precious. Only the top sects possessed it. If a small sect possessed a fist-sized piece, it could bring disaster to their entire sect. The Holy Land is going too far. How could the celestial minister agree to such an outrageous order from the Star Venerate? Even the Tianxiang dynasty does not have much sun-scorching star spirit iron. Once we hand it over, how can we maintain our dynasty's karmic luck? Raged one of the elders of the imperial family. The celestial minister? Ha! When has his heart ever been with the Tianxiang dynasty? Snorted another elder of the imperial family. I think the celestial minister must have some unspeakable secret. Before we know the truth, we shouldn't make any guesses, said a third elder of the imperial family. Elder Gu is right. Although the celestial minister is the celestial minister of the Tianfu star, he's still a member of the Tianxiang dynasty. He wouldn't have made such a decision unless he had no other choice. The emperor of the Tianxiang dynasty said slowly. Your Majesty, do you mean that the celestial minister is under irresistible pressure from the Star Venerate? Asked the elder of the imperial family who spoke first. It's just a guess. We'll have to wait for the celestial minister to come back to know the specific reason. The emperor of the Tianxiang dynasty replied. On the 32nd floor of the Pill Pagoda, 3 powerful figures stood quietly. One of them was the black-clothed elder, who had delivered the sword to the Pill Pagoda. Apart from the black-clothed elder, the other 2 were illusory figures. Obviously they were not here in person. Zhen Yang, why did you call us here in such a hurry? Asked one of the illusory figures. The Holy Land's edict. The black-clothed elder told them about the sun-scorching star spirit iron in detail. Troublesome matter. A strange look flashed in the eyes of the venerable Dongluan as he spoke. What puzzles me is that the celestial minister agreed to this matter. It's really strange, said the black-clothed elder. Hand over 30% of the sun-scorching star spirit iron first to test the Holy Land, and the star venerates attitude, said the illusory figure who had been silent calmly. Okay, I understand. The black-clothed elder nodded and agreed. After they finished discussing this matter, the two illusory figures gradually faded away. They were about to leave. By the way, Xinjiang, what's the background of the young man you asked me to give the sword to? Asked the venerable Dongluan, as he recalled what had happened earlier. I don't know the background of the person who killed Tanlang. However, this lad's strength is extraordinary, especially his attainments in swordsmanship. At his age, he can be said to be shocking. If the Pill Pagoda can use him, he'll surely be the sharpest killing sword, the black-clothed elder replied. It seems that you have high expectations for this lad, said the venerable Dongluan. The black-clothed elder nodded and said, with the soul-transferring pill, the Holy Land's sword venerable will soon wake up. You should know how terrifying this lad is. The Pill Pagoda lacks such a strong person. I saw a possibility in that young man. Perhaps after 60 years, this lad will grow into a peerless strong person who can contend with the sword venerable. 60 years. The venerable Dongluan sighed. That's too long. You can decide for yourself. However, the Seven Kills Palace's peerless heavenly genius has already matured. If you can avoid offending him, do your best to avoid offending him. I understand. I know what I'm doing. The black-clothed elder nodded. Good. The venerable Dongluan didn't say anything else. His figure gradually faded until he disappeared. In the depths of Jiaxing Mountain, in front of the temple, Ning Chun waited for several more days. However, this time, the ghost woman didn't return. After waiting for so long, Ning Chun could only leave. Before leaving, he placed down the yellow spring seal in front of the temple. He also left behind a trace of his spiritual sense. If the ghost woman returned one day and tried to break the seal, he would be able to sense it. In front of Jiaxing Mountain, Ning Chun walked out. Suddenly, the clouds in the 9 heavens changed. A pressure comparable to a supreme being descended. The terrifying might shook the heavens and the earth. Phoenix, you have nowhere to run. The Seven Kills Palace's master descended from the sky. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he held his halberd. He looked like a divine king. The current Seven Kills Palace's peerless heavenly genius, Yin Yuntian, who looked down on the entire heavenly mansion planet's younger generation, had finally appeared. Ning Chen's expression froze. A moment later, he realized who it was that had sold him out. The heavenly mansion's holy maiden. Surprised? The heavenly mansion's holy maiden used your whereabouts to exchange for my heavenly star bead. However, since I was able to find you, it was worth it, said Yin Yuntian. Everyone has their own value. It seems my value isn't bad. Ning Chen waved his hand, and a red sword appeared. Your value is to accompany greed and death. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Yuntian's figure instantly moved. The halberd of the oblivion cloud smashed down with a force that could break the heavens. Pieces of space cracked open, and its shocking might caused others to feel as if the sky was collapsing. Ning Chen raised his sword to block. But with a bang, his legs sank several inches into the ground, and a crack appeared on his sword. A divine weapon and an ordinary sword had a clear difference in strength. In just one move, the battle had tipped in Ning Chen's favor. Sword-style break space. Ning Chen's finger condensed yuan, and a sword shook the battle. Taking advantage of the shockwaves, Ning Chen leaped into the air. Wind and clouds changed around his sword, and endless streams of sword qi converged from all directions. This extraordinary sword resonated with heaven and earth, causing the Seven Kills Palace's master's expression to become grave. He circulated his true yuan, preparing to receive this attack. But just as he was about to unleash his sword style, an almost inaudible sound rang out. The broken ordinary sword was unable to endure the peak sword energy and shattered. The sudden change caused the sword qi in the air to scatter. Ning Chen was the first to bear the brunt of the sword intense backlash, and was sent flying. Fuck! Ning Chen landed on the ground, and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Even though his temperament was extraordinary, he still couldn't help cursing. Even the heavens want to kill you. Die. Yin Yuntian stamped his foot, and his halberd soared into the sky. Lightning and fire gathered in all directions, and his halberd slashed down. In this moment of crisis, Ningchen summoned his green cauldron and smashed it without the slightest hesitation. Boom! Jiaxing Mountain was struck by a calamity. The ground within 100 miles instantly caved in, and the mountain split apart. Lava spurted out from the bottom of the mountain, covering the sky. Chapter 539. On Jiaxing Mountain, Yin and Yang were in chaos. Boulders fell like rain, and endless flames spread, destroying all life along the way. Hong Yi charged out from the shockwaves, heading east. You want to run? Wishful thinking. Yin Yintian took a step forward. 7-colored light revolved around him, and an ancient war chariot with 100 beasts carved on it appeared. The Kuan-Peng's totem awakened, and the war chariot sped up. The phoenix and the Kuan-Peng were 2 peak divine beasts of the ancient era. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them were 50 miles away. Without a sword, a swordsman's strength was severely restricted. Ning Chun continued east, not willing to clash with the 7 Slaughter Palace's master. Yin Yuntian chased after him, his killing intent growing stronger. He didn't believe this person could escape to the horizon. What's that? The 2 of them passed by. The grand exalts of the large sects felt the pressure from the sky. The heavenly divine war chariot, said the sect master. The heavenly divine war chariot really is in the hands of the 7 Slaughter Palace's master. Just how lucky is he? With this treasure, the 7-colored armor, and the Forget Cloud divine halberd, even a sovereign wouldn't be able to do anything to him, said the grand exalts with fear. The present age's 7 murders are indeed powerful beyond imagination. Otherwise, with his domineering temperament and so many supreme treasures, he would have already died a violent death, said the great sect's master. Just as the 2 of them were talking, the 2 streaks of light were already hundreds of miles away. Their speed was shocking. Boom! 1,000 miles away, the 2 of them once more exchanged blows. While chasing, Ningchen suddenly turned his head. The reincarnation mirror shone with a boundless black light. It came without any warning, so no one had time to react. Yin Yuntian was caught off guard and was hit by the black light. He immediately paused. In an instant, Ningchen smashed the green cauldron in front of him. Yin Yuntian and the heavenly divine war chariot were smashed into the ground. Dust and sand filled the sky. However, just as Ningchen was about to throw another brick, he saw the Forget Cloud divine halberd in front of him. Yin Yuntian, who had been struck by the cauldron, wasn't injured at all. Ningchen cursed. He immediately turned around and ran. Phoenix, I want you to die without a burial ground. Yin Yuntian, who was covered in dust, was about to spit fire from his eyes. A large part of the armor in front of his chest had caved in, and an undetectable crack had appeared. The rainbow armor that had always been indestructible had almost been destroyed. In the distance, in the Palace of Defeating Armies, a watery light screen reflected the scene of the 2 people chasing each other. Lu Qingyi stood in front of the screen, watching this endless grudge with interest. She had no intention of helping either side, and was waiting for the final result. Based on their current strength, Yin Yuntian definitely had the upper hand. However, a battle of life and death was not a martial arts competition in the arena. It would not be so easy to kill the phoenix that possessed the extreme speed of heaven and earth. It was unknown when she would be able to retract her rebirth mirror. Seeing the 2 people chasing each other disappear into a black forest, Lu Qingyi's beautiful face revealed a trace of displeasure. The annoying black prison ridge had caused her to miss out on a good show. The next moment, in front of the watery light screen, Lu Qingyi scattered and disappeared. In the black prison ridge, the world around the 2 people chasing each other became darker and darker. Not long after, they could only see less than 10 feet in front of them. Black trees and rocks were everywhere, covering the sky and the sun. It was as if they had fallen into hell and could not escape. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, Yin Yuntian's expression darkened. He leaped into the sky and condensed his energy with his halberd. Endless lightning and fire gathered together, and the mighty heavenly might slashed down. The halberd that shook the heavens split the mountains and split the seas. The ground within 20 miles collapsed, and the phoenix's figure could no longer be seen amidst the billowing dust. In the crisscrossing black stone forest, Ningchen appeared. He patted the dust off his body, and immediately continued to move forward. This godforsaken place had really helped him a lot. The heavenly palace's saintess had sold him out because of a stone. It seemed that he was not careful enough. Zhang Wuji's mother's words were true. Women could not be trusted, especially beautiful women. One day, he would definitely get back at her, and let her have a taste of being chased all over the place. However, the most important thing right now was to find a way to escape. This 7-kill palace's palace master was covered in priceless treasures, and was fine even after being hit by the green cauldron. He was not easy to deal with. Just at this moment, a beautiful figure appeared in the sky. Looking at the endless black prison ridge, she couldn't help frowning. "Luqingyi, why are you here?" Yin Yuntian asked when he saw the woman not far away. "It's nothing. You don't need to worry about me. Do what you need to do," said Luqingyi casually. Yin Yuntian coldly snorted and didn't say anything else. This woman's temperament was strange, and no one knew what she was thinking. As long as it didn't get in his way, there was no need to pay attention to it. Suddenly, the sound of rolling stones came from the black stone forest. Yin Yuntian returned to his senses, and immediately rushed forward. In the void, Luqingyi saw this and followed him step by step. The war chariot landed and Yin Yuntian walked out. He carefully looked around for the phoenix's hiding place. After walking for a long time, Yin Yuntian's heart sank. Something was wrong. The surroundings were exactly the same. No matter how he walked, there was no change. Obviously, someone had done something. Seal. Yin Yuntian's expression turned cold as he swung his halberd. There was a shocking vibration, and the surrounding space shook violently. However, it did not collapse. Luqingyi looked down from the sky, and a strange look flashed in her eyes. This guy still had such a trick up his sleeve. 100 miles away, Hongyi appeared and pointed her middle finger to the back. She then continued to walk east. Although he couldn't lay down a complete seal of the underworld in such a short time, it was enough for this 7-kill palace master to smash for a while. Just as Ningchen walked out of the Black Prison Ridge, and was about to find a place to recover his true yuan, a beautiful figure appeared and blocked his path again. "You again?" Looking at the girl in orange, Ningchen felt a headache coming. There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. There was no end to this. "Why am I not welcome? How about I let Yin Yuntian out, and you guys continue to fight?" Luqingyi smiled. Ningchen's expression immediately changed, and he smiled brightly. "Welcome, miss. Do you need something from me? Are you interested in going somewhere with me?" asked Luqingyi softly. "Where?" Ningchen was on guard. This woman was too evil. Her strength was unfathomable, and her personality was unpredictable. He really didn't want to have any dealings with such a person. 7-kill palace, said Luqingyi calmly. Oh. Ningchen's heart was immediately shaken. This 7-kill palace master was truly filled with treasures. Presumably, the 7-kill palace wouldn't lose out to him. Looting the 7-kill palace was truly a tempting thing. So, do you want to go or not? Hurry up and decide. Yin Yuntian will come out soon. Then you won't have a chance to go, continued Luqingyi. Why don't you go yourself? Asked Ningchen cautiously. It's very simple. I don't want to face Yin Yuntian head-on. So I'll only bring you there. I won't attack to avoid leaving any traces of my aura, said Luqingyi calmly. What are your conditions? Asked Ningchen. I want one of the 7-kill palace's mist beads. Deal. Ningchen nodded. Come with me. After saying that, Luqingyi took a few light steps and headed towards the southeast. Ningchen didn't hesitate and quickly followed. 2,000 miles away, two figures were rushing over. The two of them stopped in front of the majestic 7-kill palace. 3 steps ahead is an illusion formation. We don't have much time. Quickly break it, reminded Luqingyi. Yes. Ningchen lightly nodded. As long as they didn't step into the illusion formation, the threat would be much lower. Breaking it from the outside wasn't too difficult. Miss, my sword is broken. I might not be able to break this formation. Can you lend me your heaven slash for a moment? Ningchen took a step forward. He was just about to attack when he stopped. There's no need. With your strength, it's enough to break it. Lu Qingyi said faintly. This person really wanted to drag her down with him all the time. Once she used her heaven slash, Yin Yuntian would definitely sense it when he returned. The sharper the weapon, the harder it was to conceal its aura. She wouldn't make that mistake. Up until now, she hadn't had any thoughts of fighting Yin Yuntian head-on. Seeing that Lu Qingyi wasn't falling for his trick, Ningchen didn't say anything else. He raised his hand and condensed yuan. Rays of sword light revolved around him and charged into the illusion formation. With a loud sound, dust and sand flew up into the sky, and the illusory formation disappeared. In front of them, a stone staircase with more than 1,000 steps appeared, leading straight to the 7-kill palace. Let's go. Lu Qingyi led the way in front, quickly passing by. Ningchen quickly followed, not daring to waste the little time they had left. The tightly shut gate of the 7-kill palace blocked their path. Ningchen raised the green cauldron and directly smashed it. After 3 loud bangs, the stone gate collapsed and the entrance appeared in front of them. How sturdy! Seeing the green cauldron's powerful uses, Lu Qingyi couldn't help sighing emotionally. This green cauldron was a perfect match for this person. Not only could it be used as a stone to smash people, it could also be used as a turtle shell to hide. As for the temperament of an expert, he didn't have it, and probably didn't care. Do you know what treasures he has, and where he usually keeps them? Asked Ning Chun as he looked at the empty hall. Yin Yuntian's best treasures are without a doubt the Forgetting Cloud Divine Halberd, the 7-colored battle armor, and the Heavenly Divine War Chariot. The Forgetting Cloud Divine Halberd and the 7-colored battle armor are the inheritances of the 7-kill palace's previous masters. As for the Heavenly Divine War Chariot, he obtained it when the Divine Treasury appeared. Other than those, he also obtained treasures like the Hidden Mist Bead and the Li Flame Bead from other ancient ruins. Yin Yuntian is a person with great fortune. He has countless treasures. As for what he has and where he keeps them, I'm not sure. Yes. Ningchen nodded. He carried the green cauldron and walked towards the depths of the hall. He didn't believe that Yin Yuntian would bring all the treasures with him. In any case, he and Yin Yuntian were irreconcilable enemies. At worst, he could just destroy the 7-kills palace. Chapter 540. Within the 7-kills palace, the two of them didn't walk far before a stone door blocked their path. Without any hesitation, Ningchen smashed the door with the green cauldron. After 2 smashes, the stone door shattered, revealing a stone room filled with flowing light. Seeing the random piles of treasures and strange stones, Ningchen didn't know where to put his eyes. He was like a poor boy who had entered a palace dazzled. You're so useless. Lu Qingyi mocked softly when she saw this. She walked around the pile of rare treasures and headed towards a table in the stone room. There were 2 divine weapons on the table. One was a cold saber, and the other was a rusty spear. Do you want the saber? Yes. And the spear? Yes. No matter what Lu Qingyi said, Ningchen just nodded. He didn't refuse anything. Lu Qingyi took the 2 divine weapons and tossed them over. She didn't seem to care at all. Ningchen took the divine weapons and put them away without looking at them. There was no time to rush. He would take them with him first. Let's go look elsewhere. Lu Qingyi looked around and didn't find anything else worth taking. She walked out of the room. Ningchen followed. When he passed by the piles of treasures and strange stones, he couldn't help but take them all. When Lu Qingyi saw this, she didn't hide the disdain in her eyes. A Grand Peak expert of the sword realm actually cared about these worldly things. How embarrassing. Ningchen ignored her disdain. He wasn't the successor of some great sect. He didn't have any treasures left behind by his ancestors. Everything had to be done by himself. What was wrong with taking some of his spoils? It was better to give the worldly things to that brat Xiaqi than to give them to Yin Yuntian. The 2 of them walked out of the room and continued forward. However, when they reached the end, they didn't find any more stone doors or secret rooms. That's it. Ningchen raised an eyebrow. It's definitely more than that. There should be some formation or restriction protecting it. We can't enter. Lu Qingyi turned back and frowned. Oh. Ningchen casually replied. He took 2 steps back and called out. Miss Liu, please make way. What are you doing? Lu Qingyi stepped aside and asked suspiciously. Destroy this palace. As soon as he finished speaking, the green cauldron smashed into the stone wall with a loud boom. The entire 7 Murders Palace began to shake, creating a terrifying commotion. Seeing this hooligan act, even Lu Qingyi, who had always been calm, couldn't help but twitch her eyelids. Boom. Ningchen was a smart person. However, when he didn't have to use his brain, he didn't hesitate to use his strength. As the 7 Kills Palace shook, the stone walls were smashed through one after another. Ningchen no longer chose a path, and smashed through wherever he went. Lu Qingyi was speechless as she followed behind. This time, Yan Yuntian would definitely go crazy. She could not understand why such a noble and holy existence, like the phoenix, would choose this guy. Boom. After smashing open another wall with the cauldron, Ningchen looked at the 2 pearls that appeared in front of him, and exclaimed in surprise. He turned to look at the woman behind him. It seemed that he had found her. Lu Qingyi's figure flashed as she grabbed the 2 pearls. A smile appeared on her beautiful face. She had finally found them. Here's the parting flame pearl. After leaving behind the hidden fog bead, Lu Qingyi threw the other bead over, and said casually. Ningchen was not picky and put away the pearl. Inside the room, other than the 2 pearls, there were also over 100 immortal sources. Without a doubt, they were all in someone's pocket. Let's go. Looking at the time, Yan Yuntian should be back soon, said Lu Qingyi. Immediately, Ningchen looked around, and saw that there were still a few intact walls. His hands itched, and he smashed another brick. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the blink of an eye, the last few walls were smashed through amidst the dust that filled the air. What entered their eyes was a completely blood-red divine material that was dazzling and intoxicating. Starsoul Iron Essence. Lu Qingyi's eyes widened, and she took a step forward. But at this moment, a red light flashed past. It was so fast that it was frightening. It grabbed the divine material, and cautiously looked at the woman in front of it. It warned, "It's mine." Lu Qingyi was already considering whether or not she should summon Heaven Slash and fight for this Starsoul Iron Essence. But thinking that this was the 7 Kills Palace, and that Yan Yuntian was about to return, Lu Qingyi suppressed her impulse and unhappily said, "Hurry up, we're leaving." Ningchen put away the Starsoul Iron Essence, and followed her with satisfaction. Although he didn't know what this piece of scrap metal was used for, if this woman couldn't resist snatching it, it must be very precious. After leaving the 7 Kills Palace, they continued north for over 300 miles before stopping to rest. Alright, our cooperation is over. The next time we meet, whether we're friends or foes will depend on my mood, said Lu Qingyi. Miss Liu, wait. Ningchen walked forward, and tried his best to put on his friendliest smile. Can you tell me what that piece of scrap metal is? You want to know? Lu Qingyi smiled. Yes. Ningchen nodded. Give me half. Lu Qingyi continued to smile. Ningchen immediately took half a step back. The word no was written all over his face. Seeing this, the smile on Lu Qingyi's face disappeared. She turned and left after saying that. Go figure it out yourself. Stingy, Ningchen softly muttered. But thinking of his gains this time, he couldn't help grinning. This trip had been worth it. Next, he would see if he could go to the Pill Tower and trick them into giving him another sword. He had to at least give him a decent reward. The previous sword's quality was too low. Even an idiot could see what that black-robed old man's goal was. He wanted him to completely break off his relationship with the Purple Star Battle. That way, he would have no choice but to rely on the Pill Tower. To tell the truth, he and the 7 Kills Palace's master were mortal enemies. His relationship with the Heavenly Palace's saintess wasn't that good either. Lu Qingyi's personality was strange, and he couldn't be sure that greed had already been killed by him. As for Tianxiang, he wouldn't consider that two-faced fellow for now. Thinking about it this way, his relationship with the Purple Star Battle's 5 powers really wasn't that good. At the Pill Tower, after the Dongwu Grand Meeting, peace had temporarily returned to the past. This power that seemed to stand aloof from worldly affairs actually had a terrifying foundation that was second only to the heavenly palace Holy Land. With 3 human paragons in charge, no major sect dared to provoke them. At dusk, outside the Pill Tower, a red-robed man walked in casually, not hiding his whereabouts at all. Walking to the front of the tower, Ningchen looked at the blue-robed disciple in front of him and said calmly, "I am Bai Yujing. I would like to see the 3rd Tower Master." "Sir Bai, please wait a moment." The blue-robed disciple replied politely and quickly walked into the tower. Not long after, the blue-robed disciple returned and bowed respectfully. "The Tower Master invites you. Please follow me." On the 32nd floor of the Pill Tower, 2 people walked into a pill room. After the blue-robed disciple brought them in, he bowed and left. "Greetings, Senior." Ningchen bowed politely. "Sit," Honorable Xinjiang said. "Thank you." Ningchen took 2 steps forward and sat at the table. "Sir Bai, why have you come to the Pill Tower?" Honorable Xinjiang asked. "I am here to thank the Pill Tower for giving me the elixir. The elder in my family has taken the elixir, and his injuries have improved a lot," Ningchen said with a smile. "You are welcome. I have heard Elder Ji mention this before. With the cultivation of your elder, the life recovery elixir can only extend his life by 10 years at most. I hope that he can enter the great fulfillment realm during this period," Honorable Zhenyang said calmly. "Thank you for your kind words, Senior." Ningchen smiled and said, "Try the elixir tea from my Pill Tower. This is a treasure. It is grown in the Wuxia mountain behind the Pill Tower and has been nourished by the ley lines under the Pill Tower. It is very beneficial to cultivators. However, the production is very low. Less than half a kilogram of it can be harvested every year." Honorable Zhenyang poured a cup of tea and pushed it in front of Ningchen. "Thank you, Senior." Ningchen thanked him again. He picked up the tea and tasted it. He felt that it was not bad. Ever since he drank a cup of tea brewed by Fan Lingyue in the pavilion, where the 2 armies confronted each other, he felt that all other teas were ordinary. It was hard to find a confidant in one's life. Although they had become enemies, this did not change his admiration for her. The divine prefecture was the world of men. However, those few short years had been Fan Lingyue's era. Tea was only delicious when drunk with a confidant. Unfortunately, he would not have the chance to do so in this lifetime. "How is the taste?" Honorable Zhenyang asked. "Excellent tea. Endless aftertaste." Ningchen smiled and said. He knew when to speak and when to speak. Mr. Bai is indeed an interesting person. As the pinnacle of swordsmanship, your tea ceremony is not inferior at all." Honorable Zhenyang smiled for the first time. "Senior, you flatter me." In front of Honorable Zhenyang, whose name shakes the world, "I dare not claim to be the pinnacle," Ningchen said respectfully. Honorable Zhenyang smiled and did not continue on this topic. He put down the teacup in his hand and said, "Mr. Bai, you must have come here for that sword." Hearing this, Ningchen's hand trembled. He immediately steadied himself. "Senior, you are so perceptive," Ningchen said softly. Honorable Zhenyang waved his hand. A black sword flew over and floated in front of the 2. The Oblivion Divine Halberd of Palace Lord Qisha is indestructible. Without a corresponding divine weapon, it is difficult to resist. This sword, Mo Kuang, is a divine weapon that can resist the Oblivion Divine Halberd. However, it will not be so easy for Mr. Bai to take it away, Honorable Zhenyang said lightly. "Senior, please enlighten me," Ningchen said seriously. "Kill the Heavenly Palace Saint within 10 days, and this sword will be yours. After 10 days, if the Heavenly Palace Saint is still alive, I will personally take back this sword," Honorable Zhenyang said coldly. Hearing this condition, Ningchen's eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed that in the few days he had been in Jiaxing Mountain, the conflict between the Holy Land and the Pill Pagoda had escalated. This old man was obviously trying to divert most of the Holy Land's attention to him. After 10 days, there will be no more saints on the Tianfu planet. As he spoke, Ningchen stood up and reached out to grab Mo Kuang, who was floating in front of him. In an instant, his aura completely changed. He was like an unsheathed divine sword, sharp and dazzling. Chapter 541. On the 32nd floor of the Pill Pagoda, Hong Yi left with her sword. Honorable Zhenyang pondered for a while and said, "Come in." Pagoda Master. A disciple in green walked in and bowed respectfully. Announced that Mo Kuang has been stolen from the Pill Pagoda. Put out a warrant for the thief. Honorable Zhenyang said slowly. Yes. The disciple in green bowed again and left. Bai Yujing, don't disappoint me. Honorable Zhenyang said softly as he stood up and looked down at Hong Yi's disappearing figure. 300 miles away, Hong Yi appeared. Looking at Mo Kuang in her hand, she felt an unwillingness to part with her sword. From today onwards, this sword was hers. In just a few days, the Pill Pagoda's attitude had changed so quickly. Obviously, the sacred land was a threat to the Pill Pagoda. Something must have happened recently that he did not know about. It seemed that he had to figure out the whole story. As for the heavenly saintess, although she had tricked him once, it was not a life and death feud. Killing her was indeed too much, but trapping her in the prison of the underworld for a year and a half was a good choice. The old man had already told him the whereabouts of the heavenly saintess, but he did not expect her to go to such a place. The wildlands, the eastern wilderness. He had heard of this wasteland before. It was cold all year round and uninhabited. It had always been a place where the empires exiled their prisoners. He did not understand why the heavenly saintess wanted to go there. The old man from the Pill Pagoda did not explain either. It seemed that he was deliberately hiding something. The purpose of the heavenly saintess's trip was likely related to the Pill Pagoda's unusual attitude. He had just destroyed Yan Yuntian's 7 Kills palace. He could take the opportunity to stay in the eastern wilderness for a few days and let Yan Yuntian search everywhere. Thinking of this, Ningchen no longer hesitated and immediately headed east. At the same time, in the 7 Kills palace, an angry roar resounded. Yan Yuntian, who had just returned, saw the destroyed palace. His murderous intent surged like an abyss and a raging sea. He could not wait to tear that despicable phoenix into pieces. In the Pujuan Palace, Lu Qingyi looked at the hidden fog pearl in her hand. A faint smile flashed across her beautiful face. Yan Yuntian, although you are a supreme genius, if you are not careful, you will really die in the hands of this person. One day later, in the eastern wasteland, a phoenix took human form. Hong Yi walked out and looked at the endless desolate land. She couldn't help but feel disappointed and frustrated. Ningchen continued to travel east for 100 miles, but he still didn't see anyone. Only the cries of the vermilion bird echoed in the sky. Ningchen raised his head and glanced at the vermilion bird that had been following him all this time, then ignored it. Before he figured out a way to break the vermilion bird's secret technique, there was no need for him to waste any more energy. Let's go. At this moment, a loud shout came from the northwest. Looking in the direction of the voice, more than 10 soldiers were escorting more than 100 prisoners to the east. The clattering sound of iron chains reverberated in the wind, very ear-piercing. Ningchen walked at the back of the group, about 5 miles away. He followed them at a leisurely pace. He wanted to see where these prisoners would be escorted to. Half a day later, when the sun was about to set, the group stopped in front of a medium-sized mine and temporarily settled down. Just these few people? In front of the mine, a bearded man looked at the prisoners who were being escorted and threw a jar of wine at them with a dissatisfied expression. These are all the recent prisoners. The Holy Land's order is too urgent. How can we find so many prisoners in such a short time? The leader of the group received the jug of wine and took a big gulp. Ah, that's true. Let's rest for tonight and hurry on tomorrow, sighed the man. Not far away, under the dusky sky, Ningchen couldn't help frowning. What did the Holy Land need so many prisoners for? Mining? That seemed to be the only explanation. But what kind of ore could make the Holy Land place such importance on it? They had even sent the Heavenly Palace's Holy Maiden over. Thinking of that, Ningchen no longer waited for this group of people. He left on his own, rushing east. The cold moon rose, and the temperature of the wasteland suddenly dropped. A red light flashed in the night, and then vanished without a trace. In the eastern wasteland's largest black iron mine, an exceptionally beautiful woman stood under the moonlight. Looking at the mine that operated day and night, she was still a bit worried. At some unknown time, a red-robed figure had appeared in the distance. After observing for a long time, she disappeared once more. In the bottomless mine, a ragged youth with disheveled hair and a dirty face appeared. He followed the prisoners into the mine. "What the hell is this place?" Ning Chen muttered softly as he looked around cautiously. The bottom of the mine was filled with logs used for support. However, from time to time, gravel would fall down, making people tremble with fear. Black iron ore. Ning Chen looked at the carts of ores being transported out and frowned slightly. The Holy Land wanted dark steel ores? What use did that have? Black iron was a pretty good thing for a mortal dynasty. But for a colossus like the Heavenly Palace Holy Land, it wasn't as useful as one would imagine. At the very least, it wasn't worth a half-step holy maiden personally coming to guard it. In the depths of the mine, 3 middle-aged overseers were looking at the black iron, or being transported out. Their dissatisfaction was clearly visible. No, this still wasn't right. Bang! The sound of iron and stone shattering rang out. Suddenly, the iron pick in one of the miners' hands was sent flying. Among the black iron ores, a black ore with a hint of brilliance appeared. It was so different from the rest that it immediately attracted everyone's attention. The 3 overseers immediately walked over. When they saw the ore, they said, "Continue digging." In the next moment, the clanging sounds rang out once more. The bright black ore was dug out. After the first piece, a second piece appeared, a third piece. Every time a piece was found, the 3 overseers would personally bring it to the surface. Ning Chen looked at the ore that was taken away and narrowed his eyes. There was no mistake. The thing that the Holy Land wanted should be this. The difference between ordinary iron and divine materials could be seen with the naked eye. These black iron ores were definitely not ordinary. The Heavenly Palace Holy Maiden's goal this time should also be this. Speaking of which, the feeling these ores gave him was a bit similar to the scrap metal he had looted from the 7 Kills Palace. But they weren't exactly the same. Holy Maiden. Just as Ning Chen was thinking, the prisoners beside him stepped aside and bowed their heads. Under the lead of a supervisor, the Heavenly Sanctum's Holy Maiden walked through the crowd. Looking at the place where the Star Soul iron ore was dug out, she waved her hand, and a jade-green sword appeared. With a slash of the sword, a loud boom rang out. The sword light penetrated several zhang deep into the ground, creating a huge hole. "Continue," said Shimujin. Shimujin spoke. However, before he could finish speaking, the entire mine suddenly shook violently. Rocks fell like rain, and it was extremely shocking. This idiot! Ning Chen cursed inwardly. Digging underground was originally a high-risk activity. With such a huge commotion, it would be strange if the mine didn't collapse. "Saintus, quickly leave." The 3 overseers saw this and pushed aside the falling boulders with their palms. They took a step forward and hurriedly said, "Leave my ass." Ning Chen was infuriated. He no longer cared about hiding his identity and cursed. There were still so many people underground. The people from the martial arts competition had already left. Were these people going to be buried alive? The 3 overseers' expressions sank. However, in this dangerous moment, they didn't have the time to bother with him. They brought the Heavenly Palace Holy Maiden out of the mine. Emo Kuang. After the 4 of them left, Ning Chen waved his hand and summoned Emo Kuang's sword edge. He took a step forward, and his sword intent soared to the extreme. Emo Kuang vibrated and hummed, and rays of sword light flashed out. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4. Endless streams of sword light appeared and circled above the mine, blocking the falling boulders. "What are you standing there for? Hurry and leave!" Ning Chen roared. Hearing his roar, the people who hadn't had time to react immediately rushed out of the mine. In the rumbling and shaking mine, more and more boulders fell. When the last few prisoners ran to the surface, the entire mine collapsed with a loud bang. Outside the mine, the prisoners who had escaped death sat on the ground, their legs weak. Looking at the collapsed mine, they were stunned for a moment before looking left and right. "Has our benefactor come out?" 1 question, 2 questions, 1 question after another. The prisoners who had made mistakes, or were exiled to this place were all anxious at this moment. They asked one another, and one asked another. In the human heart, Good and evil were never absolute. Perhaps at some point good would suppress evil. No matter who it was, there was no difference. Boom. Below the mine, a ray of sword light cut open the ground. A red light shot out, his black hair dancing. Looking at the 4 people who had escaped first, his eyes were filled with anger. He was already covered in blood, and had no right to criticize anyone. However, he didn't bear his own mistakes, and instead brought disaster to these innocent people. The word Holy Maiden was really disgusting. In the distance, Shimujin looked at the figure in the air. Her guilty gaze immediately turned cold. It's him. Sword style heavenly fall. Emo Kwang let out a cry. Rays of sword light shot into the sky, and then fell down with a force that could break the heavens. The shocking sword slashed towards the heavenly palace Holy Maiden. As the sword light attacked, a zither appeared in Shimujin's hand. With a clang, a mysterious sound rang out. A sword box appeared out of thin air, and 2 green swords flew out to meet Emo Kwang's sword light. Shimujin took 3 steps forward, and her zither pulsed. The 2 green swords broke through the air, and slashed towards the figure in the sky. Ning Chen's expression turned cold. Emo Kwang waved his hand and deflected Yi Chen's sword. Immediately after, Ning Chen changed the direction of his sword, and the 2 swords collided. Emo Kwang's sword? Did the pill tower send you? After 2 moves, Shimujin recognized the sword in Ning Chen's hand. No matter who sent me, you will pay for your foolish actions today. As the sound of his voice faded, Ning Chen's left hand congealed yuan energy as he slashed his fingers across Emo Kwang's sword. In an instant, a torrent of undercurrents surged. After Yama's sword was broken, Ning Chen's sword was at its peak. Instantly, a boundless sword pressure descended from the heavens. Wherever the sword intent passed, the earth crumbled. Life burial. An instant later, the life burial sword descended while carrying boundless destructive force. All along the way, expanse after expanse of space collapsed swiftly, and this world-shocking scene caused the numerous prisoners in the distance to tremble unconsciously. Chapter 542. The Sword of Burial descended upon the mortal world, destroying everything in its path. With Emo Kwang's knowing destiny state cultivation, his strength returned to its peak. With one strike, heaven and earth mourned. Shimujin turned her palms and condensed her essence. She strummed her guqin, and the green glaze swords turned around and clashed with the destructive sword radiance. With a clear sound, Shimujin's body split open, revealing a silver soft armor that blocked Emo Kwang's sword aura. Bloody path. With the phoenix body and the devil technique, Emo Kwang's sword radiated a bloody light. The sword was as heavy as a mountain, increasing its strength by several times. The sudden change in strength sent the green glaze swords flying. Emo Kwang broke through the obstruction and stabbed the heavenly saintess's chest. However, the soft armor was indestructible, and Emo Kwang's sword could not penetrate it. Flying frost, Shimujin strummed her guqin and wielded her swords again. She turned her swords around and slashed back. Frost fell, and the green glaze light came for her life. Ning Chen waved his hand, and a cold blade appeared. With a swing of the blade, the 2 swords stopped. As the blade and the sword met, the battle intent surged. Rays of killing light clashed with each other. Shimujin was furious and shocked. It turned out that Ning Chen had been hiding his strength all along. Why have I never heard of such a person on planet Tianfu? Shimujin suppressed the shock in her heart. She flipped her guqin, and the 2 swords revolved around her. Endless cold air rose, and Xianqi condensed into 2 swords that broke through the air. Breaking space, Xianqi swept over, and Emo Kwang's sword intent gathered in Ning Chen's hand. The sword broke through the air and swallowed the 2 swords. With a boom, the aftershock spread in all directions. Hongyi did not stop, and quickly swept over. The phoenix fire on her sword rose and resonated with the sword, trying to break through the protective armor. Cold moon illuminates the 9 prefectures. Shimujin strummed her guqin with both hands, and the 2 swords spun. Rays of cold sword intent spiraled up and turned into a cold moon. Wherever the moonlight shone, heaven and earth froze. Unexpectedly, Hongyi did not dodge. Emo Kwang slashed through the frozen heaven and earth, and crashed into Shimujin's guqin. With a clang, 3 strings of the guqin broke, and the aftershock rushed towards Hong Yi. Shimujin retreated a few steps as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Although he had the soft armor to protect him, he was still injured by the sword. Qin Hong, seeing that his opponent's soft armor was hard to break, Ning Chen stepped on the ground at an extremely fast speed. The sword intent around him gathered at the tip of his sword. In a flash, his sword broke the silver soft armor. As danger approached, Shimujin's expression darkened. With a wave of his hand, he kept the damaged guqin and called back his twin swords. Cold snow drifted as the twin swords shook Missouri Kwang. With a bang, the sword intent of the 3 swords scattered in all directions. The saber light in Ning Chen's left hand arrived again, mercilessly chopping down at the same spot. Blood splattered everywhere. The silver soft armor, that had been severely damaged, finally couldn't take it anymore. A clear cut appeared on it. The divine armor was about to be destroyed. Ning Chen leaped up and condensed another sword. Thousands of sword streams gathered from all directions. The powerful sword power shone brightly for 100 miles. Nirvana. As soon as the Nirvana sword appeared, numerous blood-colored sword streams tore through the sky, and they were gorgeous and enchanting. Shimujin's pupils constricted. At the moment of life and death, he hurriedly used his life-saving technique. White cloth fluttered around his body as his true essence condensed. Frost filled the sky as the hibiscus flowers bloomed to protect his body. With a violent tremor, the Nirvana sword cut through the frozen white cloth. The divine armor shattered, and the woman flew more than 100 feet away. Ning Chen's figure landed. He stepped forward with his sword, and the coldness in his eyes was undisguised. Originally, he only wanted to trap her for a year and a half to avoid the Pill Pagoda's 3rd Tower Master's sight. However, it wasn't so simple now. In front of him, the Heavenly Palace's Saintess' protective soft armor was shattered. Her skin was exposed, and her body was faintly discernible. However, within a few thousand feet, only the 2 of them were left. The 2 of them were facing off against each other. Knowing Destiny, whose heart was as calm as water, didn't change his expression at all. It was no different from looking at a piece of wood. There were people who could make Knowing Destiny change his expression, but it was definitely not the Heavenly Palace's Saintess. Step by step, Ning Chen walked closer like the bell of the Grim Reaper. Shimujin, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. Her body surged with coldness, and the world around her turned into a world of frost. Seeing this, Ning Chen frowned slightly and stopped walking. Although the woman in front of him still looked the same, her aura was completely different. It vaguely felt that she had surpassed the pressure of a sovereign. Heavenly Palace's Star Venerate. Ning Chen's heart sank as he slowly uttered the words. In the entire Heavenly Palace planet, only the legendary Star Venerate could have such a horrifying pressure. However, Knowing Destiny didn't have to fear her. Destruction of the Void. Shimujin raised her hand, and the space within 1,000 feet collapsed. Her horrifying might could frighten even gods and ghosts. Ning Chen retreated, and a flash of light disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already 1,000 feet away. Mo Kuang waved his hand, and a 1,000-foot-long gust of wind roared out and swept toward the Heavenly Palace's Saintess in the distance. Shimujin waved her hand, and the space in front of her twisted violently, blocking the 1,000-foot-long sword light with a bang. Drawing a prison, Shimujin raised her hand again, and the world around her instantly turned into a prison 1,000 feet away, trapping the phoenix. Is it that easy? Ning Chen snorted coldly, and the phoenix fire around him soared. It burned the sky and boiled the sea, burning the world and shattering the prison. Sword technique, bury the heavens. Book of Sun, rising sun shines in the east. Facing a strong enemy, Ning Chen didn't hold back anymore. He used both his sword and his saber. Endless sword chi gathered in the divine sun, illuminating the world. Not bad. Shimujin, who was leading the Heavenly Palace's Star Venerate, said indifferently. Then, she flipped her hand, and frost rushed into the sky, forming a huge curtain of wind and snow that blocked the falling sword light. Just as Ning Chen and the Heavenly Palace's Star Venerate were fighting, countless guards surrounded the Xia dynasty's Imperial Edict Palace, to protect the Xia dynasty's emperor. Within the palace, a beautiful figure wielding a sword entered the palace. She didn't hurt anyone. Instead, she used the sheath of her sword to send everyone in her way flying. More than 10 years had passed, and the palace's guards had changed many times. For a moment, no one recognized who it was. "Your Majesty, this person's strength is shocking. We can't block her," said a shadow guard anxiously. "Who is it?" asked Xiaqi, his expression dark. "She looks like a little girl, but her cultivation is at least at the 3 disaster level," reported the shadow guard. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the guards were sent flying. The palace doors opened, and a beautiful figure walked out. Looking at Xiaqi, she said angrily, "Xiaqi, call back Yingui City's soldiers. Don't fight." Hearing this, Xiaqi's expression froze. "Who is this girl?" "Miss, calm down first." Xiaqi was preparing to calm her down. At the same time, he signaled the shadow guard to prepare to activate the hidden power in the depths of the palace. The shadow guard received the order and rushed to the back of the Imperial Edict Palace. "Miss, trespassing into the palace is a serious crime. However, since you didn't hurt anyone, you shouldn't have any enmity with the Xia dynasty. If you want to enter the palace, why do you have to use such a violent method?" Xiaqi was full of nonsense, trying his best to stall for time. "They won't let me in," said the girl honestly. Boom! At the same time, a boundless power exploded from the depths of the palace. The treasure that suppressed the dynasty's fate was awakened, and its power shook the entire palace. Above the palace, purple chi was vast and mighty. After more than 10 years of recovery, although it was far from the time when knowing Destiny's state could fight deities, it still made all the Xiantian experts tremble. "Stop!" At this moment, a beautiful figure in a blue dress rushed into the palace. Seeing the terrifying fate descending from the sky, her expression changed. Seeing the girl in front of the fate, Xiaqi's expression also changed. "Anshi, this is bad." The fate had already descended, and it was too late to take it back. The girl moved, unsheathing the initial heart sword, and a blue sword light slashed out, smashing into the fate in the sky. In the next moment, a violent collision sounded out, and everyone present was forced back several steps. Xiaqi stabilized himself and hurried forward. "Anshi, are you okay?" Ningxi wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and glared at the former. She walked over to the girl and asked with concern, "Are you hurt?" "No." Seeing Ningxi, a beautiful smile appeared on the young girl's delicate face as she replied, "Anshi, you know her? Who is she?" Xiaqi was shocked and asked. "She is Man, the sister of the current barbarian king. If you hurt her today, your master will skin you alive when he comes back," Ningxi scolded. When Xiaqi heard that, cold sweat ran down his back. He quickly went up and respectfully said, "Little master's wife, I didn't do it on purpose." He knew about this princess of the barbarian dynasty. She was the only person his master had let down in his life. In his master's heart, this princess of the barbarian dynasty had a unique position. If his master knew that he had used the Grand Xia's fate to deal with her today, he would probably skin him alive when he came back. Reason: his master had always been very reasonable, but when it came to this princess of Aman, all reason was nonsense. "You've grown up. Good boy." Aman didn't have any intention of blaming him. She reached out and pinched his face, a gratified look in her eyes. The last time she had seen him, this little fellow had still been wetting his pants. Now he was taller than her. Xiaqi didn't dare resist. He glared at all the guards in the hall, and then smiled. "Aman, why have you come?" Ningxi didn't understand. Her brother had left over 10 years ago, and Aman should have known. He doesn't like fighting. "She wasn't obedient, so I came," Aman replied. "Xiaqi, what are you fighting for?" Ningxi looked at the Great Xia Emperor, who had grown up, and asked seriously. "To expand Great Xia's territory." Xiaqi's eyes burned. When Ningxi heard that, she didn't retort and continued to ask, "How many martial marquises does Great Xia have now?" 6. Xiaqi was startled as he replied, "Compared to your master's era, how is it?" Ningxi asked once more. "It can't be compared," Xiaqi said honestly. When Great Xia was at its peak, the 10 martial marquises shocked the world. Following which, his master conferred the title of Martial Marquis, and plotted in the dark to barely block Fan Lingyue. How is the current Beiming compared to the past? Ningxi said coldly. Apart from not having that advisor, there isn't much difference. Xiaqi replied. Beiming is different from Great Xia. You won't see a city in 1,000 miles, and it's all grasslands. Even if Beiming doesn't have Fan Lingyue, Great Xia doesn't have a Jiming Marquis either. How do you think the Great Xia army that entered Beiming without a city barrier can block the Beiming cavalry? Ningxi scolded. Chapter 543. In the eastern wilderness, knowing destiny and heavenly mansion star venerables were fighting. The aftermath of the battle destroyed thousands of feet of land. It was a complete mess. One star venerables were the strongest beings in the human world, who had surpassed the great perfection. The saintess of the heavenly mansion's spiritual sense was able to increase her power rapidly. Her strength was comparable to that of a sovereign. Ning Chen held Mo Kuang in his hand. His sword will reach the peak. Every move he made was filled with sword will. Heaven and earth trembled. The battle was white hot, and the sky was collapsing and the earth was falling. This was a battle between peak supremes that was not inferior to supremes. This caused the heavenly mansion star venerate's eyes to grow more and more surprised. She had no idea when the heavenly mansion star had such a strong swordsman. Nirvana! Nirvana appeared again. Sword wills gathered from all directions. A beautiful sword current appeared in the air, destroying everything in its path. The heavenly mansion star venerables turned his palm. The space around him twisted and broke the sword. Sizzle! The sword will pass through. Blood was spilled. The spiritual sense of the heavenly mansion star venerables couldn't use its power. It was instantly injured. Worried about his disciples' safety, the heavenly mansion star venerables didn't dare to drag the battle. He gathered the essence of heaven and earth in his palm. Frost fell from the sky like waves. He used the heavenly mansion secret technique. Heavenly clear snow, following the waves. Extreme power appeared. Heaven and earth froze quickly. Rolling waves of snow spread. The shocking power turned everything within thousands of feet into a world of extreme winter. Sword technique, 9 suns burning the sky. Seeing that the ultimate move was so powerful, Ning Chun condensed his phoenix spirit and used his sword to guide the wind and clouds. The sword form and the tomes of arcane flowed at the same time. The 9 sword suns spiraled into the sky and immediately turned into 9 divine swords that fell down and crashed into the raging snow waves. The extreme cold and the extreme yang collided. The space that was full of holes was destroyed again. Blood splashed everywhere. The two retreated dozens of feet at the same time. They were both injured. Sword returning to truth. Blood flowed into the ground. Knowing destiny didn't feel it. He raised his sword again. The shadow of a phoenix appeared out of nowhere. The strongest sword, returning to truth, was infinitely close to the only sword. It was fast, accurate, and focused. Heaven and earth froze. When they looked back, blood had already filled the sky. The sword that pierced through Shimujin's chest didn't show any mercy. Shimujin's body was immediately injured. The heavenly mansion star venerate's expression changed. His spiritual sense condensed into stars, and he used all his strength to attack the young man in red. Ning Chen pulled out his sword and parried the star venerable's palm power. With a thud, he retreated more than 100 feet, and the corners of his mouth turned red. As his soul consciousness left his body, Shimujin's body fell to the ground. Blood flowed out from his chest and dyed his clothes red. Hibiscus, seeing that his disciple was seriously injured, the heavenly mansion star venerate could not hide the anger in his eyes. With a low roar, he forcefully borrowed the power of his main body from thousands of miles away to gather his strongest move. Eternal Banishment. A 1-star venerable unleashed a move in anger. In an instant, it surpassed the limits of the mortal supremes. The space within a radius of 10 miles instantly turned into nothingness. Turbulence engulfed everything within it. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. His figure dissipated and turned into a phoenix. He spread his wings and soared into the sky. Can you escape? The heavenly mansion star venerate moved and stood in front of Yi Futian. His slender hand pressed down, and with a loud bang, the 9 heavens collapsed. The phoenix appeared, and his red robes were dyed red. As he fell, his eyes opened, and his sword will shot up into the 9 heavens, instantly piercing through the woman's soul. Ah! The heavenly mansion star venerate groaned. His aura became unstable, and he was about to dissipate. Bang! The red robes landed on the ground, and dust flew everywhere. He was seriously injured, but he had won this intense battle. Heavenly mansion star venerate, I won't see you off, Ning Chen said coldly as he stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. If anything happens to Hibiscus, there will be no place for you in the heavenly mansion star. With that, the heavenly mansion star venerate's soul dissipated, turning into specks of starlight that dissipated between heaven and earth. Ning Chen ignored him and walked over to the seriously injured Shimujin. He used his fingers to seal her major acupoints. Then, a phoenix figure appeared and swallowed her into his stomach. A day later, on the 32nd level of the Pill Pagoda, a shattered divine robe was delivered to Venerable Jinyang. When the Pill Pagoda Prime saw it, he was shocked. He had actually succeeded. In less than 5 days, it seemed that he had to re-evaluate this person's value. Thousands of miles east of the Pill Pagoda, Ning Chun returned in front of a large waterfall. When the Alcade King saw him, he frowned and asked, "You're injured?" "I fought with a wisp of the heavenly mansion star venerate's soul and got injured," Ning Chen said with a tired expression. "Someone who has surpassed the consummate realm," the Alcade King said slowly after a moment of silence. He was very clear about the strength of the young man in front of him. Just a wisp of his soul could injure him to this extent. There was no doubt that this young man was someone who had surpassed the Supremes. Yes, Ning Chen nodded. After thinking for a while, he said, "Elder Alcade, you." Before he finished speaking, the heavens and earth rumbled. In the distant void, 3 dragon corpses pulled the palanquin up into the sky. They were about to leave this world. "Elder, I'm leaving. Do you want to come with me?" Ning Chen's expression changed. He had no choice but to swallow all the words he wanted to say. The Alcade King looked at the palanquin in the distance. After a while, he sighed softly and said, "No, you should leave quickly. I will block the next obstacle for you. Remember, the path to immortality is difficult and endless. If you really can't find an immortal, you can become one yourself." Seeing that the Alcade King had made up his mind, Ning Chen did not force him. He bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you for your advice, Elder Alcade." Then he turned into a phoenix. With a shocking cry, he turned into a ray of light and chased after the palanquin. "That is, a phoenix." The figure of a phoenix appeared in the sky. On the Tianfu planet, peak experts opened their eyes and exclaimed in shock. In the 7 Murders Palace, Yin Yuntian's expression sank. He waved the Oblivion God halberd in his hand, and divine light shot into the sky. At the same time, in the Tianfu sacred ground, the Tianfu star venerate, who was refining star soul iron, had a cold look in his eyes. He pulled out a part of his soul and condensed Yuan Qi into a palm. From 2 directions, one after the other, light shot towards the phoenix in the sky. At this moment of crisis, a white-robed figure appeared in the sky. He waved his hand, and a sword flew out. With a slash of the sword, 10,000 zhang of the void suddenly split open. An instant later, the 2 attacks collapsed and disappeared. After 100 years, the white-robed Alcade King once again showed his shocking peak ability. Tianfu sacred ground was shocked. An extraordinary opponent. On the Tianfu sacred ground, a black-robed figure walked out. It was the Tianfu sacred ground's sword venerate. Thousands of li away, he looked at the figure in the sky with battle intent rising in his eyes. In the shattering army palace, Lu Qingyi, who felt the movement in the sky, walked out. When she saw the phoenix soaring into the sky, a strange look flashed across her beautiful eyes. Was he leaving? Life was a passerby, and it was a pity that she did not know if she would meet this eccentric peak swordsman again in the future. It seemed that she would not be able to get her reincarnation mirror back. Thinking of this, the heavenly slash appeared. A green blade of light shot into the sky, sending off knowing destiny. The blade of light did not have any killing intent. The Alcade King did not stop it, and let it soar into the sky. In the sky, the green blade of light passed by without any enmity. It was just sending off the fate of knowing each other. Miss Lu, goodbye. A familiar voice came from the sky, bidding farewell to this short period of life. I hope that when we meet again in the future, we will be friends and not enemies, Luchini replied. Of course. After the phoenix's last words, the phoenix disappeared with the celestial pride. Not a trace of it could be seen. In the pill tower, Reverend Jin Yang looked at the phoenix in silence. He had actually left. It was a pity for Mo Kuang, and even more a pity for this young and sharp sword. Tianxiang he left. In the north of the sacred land, on the way back to the Tianxiang dynasty, Fan Xinghong softly said. Perhaps he never belonged here. Xiao Bieli sighed. Let's go. I have a feeling that we will meet again. However, whether we will be friends or foes at that time will be hard to predict. The path to the stars was dangerous. Even human sovereigns could get lost. This person was not afraid of danger, and had stepped on this path. Without a doubt, he had a determination that surpassed life and death. Outside Tianfu planet, in the vast starry sky, 3 dragons opened the path. The palanquin moved forward as if it had never changed. The only difference was that there was now a phoenix chasing after it. He had never dared to stop and rest his entire life. In less than half a year, knowing destiny left once again. The path to becoming an immortal was never smooth. In the southwest of Zhongzhou, outside Tianhua City, a beautiful woman looked around in boredom. Behind her, Amethyst followed closely. Amethyst, where do you think he is right now? Minghua pouted. I don't know. Amethyst shook her head. The Central Plains was too big. It would be difficult for them to find him, if they were to aimlessly search. The best method would be to ask the sect. However, that was too risky. She was the only one by Her Majesty's side. She couldn't take the risk. Of course, there was another method, but she couldn't use it so easily. Back in Beiming Imperial Palace, knowing Destiny Marquis had left a portion of his spiritual sense on her. However, that was something he had given to Her Majesty to protect her life. If she used it, not only her, but even knowing Destiny Marquis would have to bear a great risk. Just as the two of them were hurrying along, a white-robed Buddhist walked over. His half-black, half-white hair fluttered in the wind. Bodhi had gradually entered the Devil Dao. He was neither human nor ghost. A terrifying pressure could be felt from him, even from a distance. As the 3 of them passed by each other, Amethyst stopped in her tracks, and turned back to look at Bodhi. A hint of suspicion flashed in her eyes. What is it? Asked Minghua. He has a trace of knowing Destiny Marquis' aura. Amethyst said truthfully. Minghua narrowed her eyes and said, Let's follow him and see where he's going. Amethyst hesitated and nodded. She reminded softly, We have to be careful. This person's cultivation is too terrifying. He might be at the same level as the woman who came to the divine prefecture. Once we attract his attention, the consequences will be unpredictable. Human sovereign? Minghua was surprised. Yes. Amethyst nodded. Then let's follow him. Minghua looked ahead and said. As the 2 of them moved, 2 more women walked over from the west. One of them was wearing a flawless Buddhist robe. Her face was delicate, and her long hair was tied behind her back. She wasn't stunning, but she gave off an indescribable sense of peace. The other woman's appearance was even more outstanding. She wore a green dress, and she also spoke very little as she quietly hurried along. They were the eldest senior sister, Bai Lingling and Qing Ning, who came down the mountain for the first time. Chapter 544. Bodhi was heading south, his half-black and half-white hair dancing in the wind. His demonic state was becoming more and more alarming. Behind him, Bright Moon and Purple Crystal followed quietly, not daring to get too close. Bodhi entered the primordial lands, his Buddhist and demonic auras clashing. His benevolent heart of the past was covered in dust. In the academy, I Qingxiu sensed the abnormally powerful Buddhist and demonic auras and frowned. What was going on? Within the primordial lands, Bodhi suddenly stopped. His body was surrounded by demonic aura and Buddhist light. His mind was hazy, and he could no longer tell whether he was a Buddha or a demon. After a short pause, the Buddhist and demonic auras returned to his body. Bodhi continued forward. When a Buddha became a demon, his only memory was to get rid of the demon sovereigns, who had returned to the primordial lands to prevent demons from wreaking havoc. At the same time that Bodhi entered, two powerful auras awakened in the depths of the primordial lands. They stared at the approaching auras, and their expressions gradually became serious. White Flood Dragon, who is this? Do you know him? Yao Qilua asked. Supreme Bodhi, peak human sovereign, the White Flood Dragon slowly said from within the white mist. He's going too far. We haven't even descended into the human world. But a human sovereign has taken the initiative to come to the primordial lands. Is he trying to provoke the anger of the primordial lands? Yao Qilua said coldly. This person's strength is extraordinary. Be careful, the White Flood Dragon warned. If we work together, do we still need to fear a human sovereign? Yao Qilua snorted. Amitba. Just as the two demon sovereigns were talking, Buddhist rain fell from the sky. The black aura within the golden color was clearly visible. It was hard to tell if it was Buddhist rain or demonic rain. Human who is neither Buddhist nor demon, provoking the primordial lands is your greatest mistake. As she spoke, Yao Qilua's body moved. Her white clothes flashed as she condensed demon essence in her palm and slammed it towards Bodhi. Buddha is merciful. Bodhi waved the prayer beads in his hand and blocked the demon sovereign's palm. His Buddha essence shook and pushed her away. Yao Qilua landed on the ground and took half a step back. Her expression was cold. What a powerful bald donkey! At the side, the White Flood Dragon saw this and waved his hand. The water vapor in the sky condensed, and a sword with water ripples appeared. In an instant, his demon body moved, and with a slash of the sword, raging waves attacked the Buddha. Bodhi did not dodge. Instead, he gently twisted his fingers, and the true essence around him surged. The aura of Buddha and demon turned into a spiraling swastika that slammed into the raging waves. The Buddha and devil collided with the demonic primordial energy. Amidst the world-shaking sounds, the primitive land began to tremble. Giant rocks flew down, and countless ancient trees collapsed. The aftermath of the battle extended out over 100 li. In the distance, Purple Crystal flipped his palm to block the gradually weakening aftershock, but he was still forced back a few steps, his chi and blood churning. Are you all right? Mingyu hurriedly supported him and asked worriedly. It's fine, Your Majesty. Let's stay further away so that we won't be affected, Amethyst said softly. Okay. Mingyu nodded and replied softly. The two of them retreated another 1,000 feet. Amethyst looked at the battle in the distance with a serious expression. The power of a human sovereign was actually so terrifying. It was truly beyond the realm of mortals. In the depths of the primitive land, the battle between the three sovereigns was becoming more and more intense. The White Flood Dragon's water ripples sword combined hardness and gentleness to negate Bodhi's shocking palm strike to the greatest extent. With Yao Qilua's help, they barely evened out the battle. Bodhi's heart meditation, boundless dharma. Bodhi's anger rose. He gently twisted his fingers, and the swastika spread rapidly. Amidst the surging demonic primordial energy, Buddhist light spread, and a golden Buddha world appeared. Seeing this, the White Flood Dragon flipped his hand, and the water ripples around him surged. The waves roared endlessly, and the water vapor within hundreds of li converged, forming a huge waterfall that turned the surrounding 1,000 feet into a vast ocean. The three sovereigns clashed again, and the auras of Buddha, demon and demon clashed. With a bang, the three of them retreated, covered in blood. Bodhi's thought pardoned sins. After stabilizing his body, Bodhi raised the prayer beads in his hand. Buddha and demonic primordial energy surged, and the power of the saint and demon converged, slashing toward the two sovereigns. Demonic calamity strikes the heavens. Yao Qilua's expression sank. She flipped her palm, and demonic primordial energy surged. A huge rock collapsed and flew into the surging demonic primordial energy, crashing toward the Buddhists. The two techniques collided, and a waterfall of blood gushed out. Yao Qilua's white clothes were dyed red, and she was sent flying. Flying waterfall. On the other side, the The white flood dragon flipped its palm to catch Yaochilua, and at the same time, it stabbed its water sword into the ground. In an instant, a huge waterfall soared into the sky, and its terrifying might shook the world. Bodhi spread his hands, and Buddha and demon primordial energy swept out, calming the demonic waterfall and stabilizing the shaking heaven and earth. White flood dragon, I will create an opportunity for you. You don't have to worry about me. Just do your best, said Yaochilua as she wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Be careful, warned the white flood dragon. If anyone dies, it will be this bald donkey who dies first. As she spoke, Yaochilua took a step forward and leaped into the air. With a long howl, blood mist surged from her 7 acupoints. Demonic primordial energy continued to gather within 100 li of her, covering the sky and causing everything within 100 li to darken. The next moment, Yaochilua moved like a falling meteor, rapidly crashing into the demonic Buddha of the Buddhist world. The demonic venerate went all out, and the prayer beads in Bodhi's hand swayed. Sanskrit chants resounded throughout the world, and one of the prayer beads changed color. It was the Buddha announcing the end of the demons. The demonic venerate and the Buddha clashed, and the 3 forces exploded. The demonic venerate was heavily injured, and its chest was pierced through by the prayer beads. Blood sprayed out like rain. Enter Seamless. Bodhi flipped his palm and slapped towards the demonic venerate's head. He was ruthless, and no longer had the benevolence of the Buddha. At that moment, a water sword appeared and pierced towards Bodhi's chest. Naive, Bodhi turned around and reached out to grab the sword's edge. However, the sword suddenly scattered, and the white flood dragon's palm struck the Buddha's chest. Ugh! A pool of blood appeared, and the Buddha's eyes turned misty. Hatred, such hatred. He hated the endless demons in the world, and hated the Buddha for eliminating evil. Haha! A gloomy and hateful laughter rang out in the primitive lands. It was so crazy, so abnormal. An indescribable pressure erupted from the Buddha's body, and the cold and evil aura shocked the entire central plains. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the 9 heavens and heavy rain poured down. Within the surging devil waves, Bodhi's white hair rapidly turned black, and the white Buddhist robes he wore were dyed black. Bodhi had demonized, and the heavens cried. The 2 demonic venerates had no time to react to the sudden change. They were sent flying by the surging devil energy, and they vomited vermilion blood. You all deserve to die. Bodhi took a step forward, and the devil waves surged around him. The Buddha world instantly collapsed, and what replaced it was a boundless bloody hell filled with sin. 6 calamities of demonic birth, hell of blood sin. Hell appeared in the world, and the 108 prayer beads in Bodhi's hand instantly turned into 108 skeletons. They no longer had a trace of Buddhist heart, and the Buddha had completely demonized. There was only killing, anger, and hatred in his eyes. The might of this devil move was shocking. The 2 demonic venerates worked together to block the devil waves. But with a bang, they were forced back several steps, and their bodies were dyed red. White flood dragon, I'll block him. Hurry up and leave. Yaochilua knew that if this continued, the 2 of them would definitely die. She scattered her Dantian's sea of qi with a palm strike. She forcefully endured the pain and re-entered the battle. The ruthless and merciless demonic venerates had brought disaster to the world countless times over the past thousands of years. However, for the sake of her companion's safety, she had resolutely chosen to give up her own life to fight for a chance to survive. Yaochilua, the white flood dragon's body trembled, and she staggered back several steps. Blood splattered everywhere. Yaochilua was bathed in blood, and every move she made was focused on attacking without defending. She risked her life to open up a path of survival and protect the few remaining bloodlines of the demonic venerates. You want to leave? Difficult. Today, none of you will be able to leave. Bodhi flipped his palm to block the demonic venerates. The skull prayer beads flew into the sky and continuously expanded, turning into a cage that blocked off all paths of retreat. Then let's go to hell together. The furious white flood dragon rushed out of her body, and the white mist around her dissipated. Her hair danced in the wind, and she wore a blue and white dress. She had a perfect face. She was the woman who had appeared in front of Knowing Destiny on the Qingxi Bridge, by Yunlian. In the pouring rain, a waterfall revolved around the woman. The water ripple sword was in her hand once more. This time, it condensed demonic blood, turning into a beautiful blood-red color. The sword guided the waterfall, and her demonic essence gathered heavenly might. Her strongest move crashed into Bodhi, who was indistinguishable between a human and a ghost. 6 calamities of demonic birth, burning the city walls. When Bodhi saw this, he flipped his palm and gathered an endless amount of demonic energy. Within the black brilliance, world-destroying flames surged out, meeting the waterfall that fell from the sky. Buddha and evil could not coexist, and water and fire could not coexist. The two extremes clashed, and blood dissipated in the fire and water. Bai Yunlian flew back several dozen feet. Her blue and white dress dyed scarlet. Ugh! Bodhi was also hit by the aftershocks. He retreated several steps, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The 108 skull prayer beads dimmed, and the cage of heaven and earth was on the verge of collapse. It could collapse at any moment. Damn it, all of you deserve to die. Demonic aura invaded, and Bodhi's divine sense was in great pain. He barely managed to stabilize his body. The killing intent in his eyes was so crazy that it made one's heart tremble. Demonic 6 calamities, divine seal and spirit devour. The ghost was enraged. Demonic aura rose, and a huge skull appeared in the sky. A terrifying suction force spread rapidly, swallowing everything in its path. The 2 demonic venerables who were closest to it staggered. Their soul consciousnesses became unstable, and they were about to leave their bodies. 100 miles away, Mingyu was also affected by the suction force of the skull. Her soul consciousness was in great pain, and her body was constantly being sucked toward the center of the battle. Purple Crystal's expression changed drastically. She reached out and grabbed Mingyu. Her true essence entered her body, and she kept stabilizing her soul consciousness that was about to leave her body at any moment. Ugh! Mingyu groaned. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, and the pain in her soul consciousness intensified. At this critical moment, Purple Crystal could not consider anything else. She shouted softly, and activated the soul consciousness imprint that Knowing Destiny had left in her body. She wanted to forcefully borrow the power of Knowing Destiny from a distance. However, no matter how much Purple Crystal activated, the soul consciousness imprint in her body was dead silent. Of the 3 incarnations, the main body was crippled, the demon body was far away in the demonic will sea, and the strange power of dragon burial blocked all power. The phoenix body had followed the palanquin and disappeared. In the most dangerous situation, Mingyu's soul consciousness became more and more unstable. Drops of blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, dyeing her clothes red. Die! In the battle, Ghost Bodhi activated his demonic aura again. In the sky, the suction force of the huge skull increased by 30%. Within 100 miles, there was no more life. It was deathly silent. Knowing Destiny, Marquis, come quickly. Purple Crystal's true essence continued to enter Mingyu's body as she shouted anxiously. At this moment, the 9 heavens phoenix cried. A monstrous roar sounded in the sky, and the entire primitive land trembled. Supreme Bodhi, you dare to hurt her. Chapter 545. The phoenix's cry reached the 9 heavens, and the sword light soared into the sky. Knowing Destiny, who had returned in anger, slashed the universe with his sword, splitting the entire primitive land into 2. In front of the 2 red clothes appeared. Looking at the heavily injured bright moon, the killing intent in her eyes could no longer be concealed. Phoenix essence entered and stabilized Bright Moon's injuries. Ningchen glanced at the woman beside Bright Moon and said, Purple Crystal, take Bright Moon and leave first. Yes. Purple Crystal suppressed the throbbing in her heart and nodded. She then took Bright Moon and quickly retreated out of primitive land. In the depths of primitive land, the giant skull's demonic aura was getting stronger and stronger. Its endless suction force continued to devour the soul consciousness of the surrounding living beings. The primitive land, which was full of life before, had turned into a land of death. Shattered bones and blood were everywhere. The heavily injured Yao Qilua had blood dripping from her chest. It was getting harder and harder for her to hold on. Yao Qilua, hold on. Bai Yunlian resisted the soul-devouring ability of the demonic aura, while trying his best to stabilize the soul consciousness that was about to leave her body. White Flood Dragon, live on. Yao Qilua pushed the former away with a palm strike. She then leaped forward like a moth to a flame, rushing towards the giant skull in the sky. Bald donkey, come with me to hell. As he spoke, streams of white flames soared into the sky, turning into a heavenly net that trapped the two of them within. In the next moment, a terrifying explosion that shook the heavens and earth rang out. The heavenly net trapped them, and the repercussions still gushed out for hundreds of li, completely razing the primitive land to the ground. In the aftermath, Bodhi was pushed back dozens of feet. His body was covered in blood. He had actually survived the Prime's self-destruction. However, at this moment, a terrifying sword light flashed past. It was so fast that no one could see it. When Bodhi turned around, he was already facing a calamity of death. The sword entered his body, and he retreated a few steps. Blood dripped from the corner of Bodhi's mouth. Looking at the most familiar figure in front of him, his demonized Buddha face flashed with anger. He flipped his palm and formed a seal, slamming it towards the ladder. Clang! A huge vibration rang out. The Buddha's palm struck the green cauldron. A huge force was transmitted, and knowing destiny was sent flying. Bald donkey, pay with your life for Yao Qilua. Bai Yunlian leaped forward. His blood-stained sword light flashed past, and killing intent filled the sky. Bodhi waved his hand and took back the skull prayer beads. He spread out his arms to block the demon venerable killer move. The scattered sword light condensed once more at Bodhi's chest. After piercing half an inch in, it could no longer advance any further. The rosary beads wrapped around his arm. The white clouds were not strong enough. He could neither advance nor retreat. Subhoodie's killing intent condensed, and he sent out a palm strike towards the former's chest. At this moment, a green cauldron came crashing down between the two of them. Bang! The Buddha's palm slapped on the green cauldron. Bai Yunlian flew out together with the green cauldron and landed on the ground, vomiting blood. The abnormally powerful Subhoodie's palm force was unparalleled. The green cauldron blocked the killing intent, but it couldn't block the remnant force that passed through. The instant Bai Yunlian flew out, Emo Kwang's sword arrived once again. His sword was extremely fast, and his body was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Emo Kwang once again pierced into the previous sword wound. The sword pierced into Subhoodie's body once more. The heavily wounded Subhoodie's injuries worsened, and his blood energy shook. He endured the pain in his chest, and gathered demonic essence in his palm to counterattack. Waterfall. Emo Kwang's demonic palm arrived, and a waterfall surged from the ground. It directly shook knowing destiny away. Bai Yunlian then passed by, and the waterlight sword turned into 100 feet long waterfall that locked onto Subhoodie. 6 calamities of demons wind weapon calamity. In the face of danger, Subhoodie used his demonic technique again. The wind roared and circled around him. The waterlight waterfall was immediately restrained and couldn't get close. Sword form. 9 suns burning the heavens. Seeing this, Ning Chen stepped into the air and used his sword form and heavenly book parallel flow again. 9 sword suns circled around, and the wind helped the fire. The power of the 9 suns rose rapidly. In the next moment, the sword suns fell from the sky and slashed towards the Buddha in the hurricane. Useless technique. With a furious roar, the skull rosary beads in Subhoodie's hand shone with an evil light. They spun rapidly in the air and turned into a sky screen, blocking the 9 falling suns. White Flood Dragon. Ning Chen shouted. Bai Yunlian understood and slashed with his water wave sword. Waterfalls rose from the ground and attacked Subhoodie, who had lost the protection of the rosary beads. Naive. Subhoodie's expression turned cold. The demonic essence around him surged and turned into a demonic cocoon to protect his demonic body. Demons and evil, the source of calamity. Enter the void. In an instant, demonic power spread out violently, destroying the 9 suns and swallowing the waterfall. The destructive power made all living beings outside the primitive land feel the fear of doomsday. In the center of the storm, Ning Chen summoned the green cauldron to block the demonic power, but he was still sent flying hundreds of meters away. On the other side, Bai Yunlian wasn't faring much better. Although he had the waterfall to block the demonic power, he couldn't dispel it. He was forced back dozens of steps, blood staining his dress. The completely demonized Subhoodie's strength had reached a shocking level. Even though Yao Qilua didn't hesitate to blow herself up to injure him, he was still not an ordinary sovereign. Even with Bai Yunlian and Knowing Destiny working together, they were still at a disadvantage. White Flood Dragon, leave first, Ning Chen said as he wiped the blood from his mouth. No, Bai Yunlian replied directly. If you don't leave, I won't be able to use my full strength. Don't worry, I won't die. You won't be able to take revenge even if you stay here, Ning Chen said seriously. Bai Yunlian narrowed his eyes and said, You're not lying to me? I never lie, Ning Chen said seriously. Bai Yunlian was silent. After a while he nodded and said, Come out alive. Have you finished discussing? If you're done, I can send you to hell together. Subhoodie walked out from the sandstorm. The prayer beads formed by 108 skulls in his hand were surrounded by demonic energy. His body was covered in a strange black aura. Under his fluttering black hair, his Buddha face was no longer as calm as before. All that was left was coldness and killing intent. Go! With a shout, Hongyi moved again. Fast as a flash of a sword, he slashed out rays of killing light from all directions, aiming at Subhoodie's major acupoints. How can a demon run rampant in front of Subhoodie? Ghost Subhoodie snorted. Demonic energy erupted from his body, and the rays of sword light disappeared. The moment the two clashed, Bai Yunlian no longer hesitated. He slashed out with his sword, sweeping away the surrounding demonic energy, and quickly retreated. You want to leave? Wishful thinking. Ghost Subhoodie took a step forward, and his figure flashed, wanting to stop the demon venerable. However, Mo Kuang's sword flashed behind him and slashed at his back. Subhoodie turned around to block the attack. In that instant, Bai Yunlian had already disappeared into the distance. Venerable Subhoodie, it's finally just the two of us left. Ning Chen pulled out his sword and retreated, looking at the demonized Subhoodie in front of him. With just you, idiot. Ghost Subhoodie snorted and mocked. Of course, I'm not enough by myself. But what if I add them? As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chen's phoenix chi soared to the peak. The red phoenix fire soared into the sky. The heaven and earth seemed to have sensed it. With a loud boom, the sky was filled with thunder and lightning. Tribulation of the four symbols. Subhoodie's expression changed. Looking at the huge commotion in the sky, his black eyes flashed with coldness. In the next moment, the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise descended from the sky. The pressure of the four symbols could be felt from thousands of miles away. He's back. In the Zhao family in the north, a purple-robed girl opened her eyes and looked toward the southwest of Zhongzhou. There was no mistake, only his heavenly tribulation could be so terrifying. In the Taibai prefecture, the Taibai prefecture lord with disheveled hair was staring into the distance in a daze. He was still alive. In the depths of the primitive land, the four symbols gods descended. The power of the heavenly tribulation sealed off 100 miles. There was no way to escape. Bodhi and Knowing Destiny. One of them had monstrous devil chi while the other was full of sin. The four symbols' divine tribulations were unprecedentedly terrifying and descended upon the land. The flattened primitive land collapsed once again. Heaven and earth shook and lava spewed out. The scene of doomsday frightened the students of the distant academies. Venerable Subhoodie, the real battle between us is coming. Among the four symbols gods, Ning Chen spun Mo Kuang in his hand and said coldly, You want to use the power of the heavenly tribulation to kill me? Difficult. Subhoodie spun the skull prayer beads. Demonic chi surged out of the beads and filled the sky, forming a terrifying demonic saber. The skull prayer beads wrapped around his hand and the saber's hilt. Endless demonic chi poured into the saber. Let the slaughter begin. With a shout, Bodhi's body moved, and the devil saber slashed out. Instantly, space began to crumble, and everything within 100 kilometers collapsed. Ning Chen stepped forward, and his figure flashed, dodging the saber. Immediately, Mo Kuang gathered the heroic chi of the Eight Directions sword and slashed at the former. At the same time, the four symbols gods rushed toward the two people in the heavenly tribulation. The azure dragon, black tortoise, vermilion bird, and white tiger trapped knowing destiny. The azure dragon's breath dissipated the demonic chi. The black tortoise blocked the demonic chi. On the other side, the vermilion bird's divine flames burned the sky. The white tiger attacked quickly. They were divided into two sides, but they still couldn't stop the two's killing intent. Their saber and sword left blood on their opponent's body. According to the laws of heaven and earth, the strength of the heavenly tribulation was different for each person. The two people affected by the four symbols' heavenly tribulation had to divide their attention. They had to deal with the tribulation while looking for opportunities to deal with it. The power of the four symbols' heavenly tribulation was astonishing. In less than 15 minutes, the two were injured. Their hands were stained red, but they didn't stop holding their weapons. Fighting against the mortal supremes again. Knowing destiny's fighting spirit rose to an unprecedented level. The blood of the azure dragon, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise hovered in his body. Yama created the world and evolved the four symbols. Scenes of the past reappeared in front of his eyes. The essence of the four symbols, the gods in charge of the four directions, gold, wood, water, and fire, were the foundation of creation. That's why there's Tai Chi. It's because of yin and yang. Yin and yang give birth to the four symbols, wood, fire, metal, and water. Tai Chi is one. It's called the four symbols' divine seal. Knowing destiny used the opportunity of the four symbols' heavenly tribulation as a guide in the immortal palace. And with the help of the four symbols' heavenly tribulation's blood, a drop of phoenix blood flew out. It turned into a phoenix and soared into the sky. It converged with the four symbols' heavenly tribulation and temporarily filled the gap of the white tiger. The four drops of heavenly tribulation's blood continued to absorb the power of the four symbols' heavenly tribulation. In an instant, the world became solemn. The four symbols' divine seal sword appeared. It pierced through the white tiger and vermilion bird and slashed toward Bodhi. Surrounded by the azure dragon and black tortoise, Bodhi's demonic blade slashed and the gods scattered. However, at this moment, a sword light that even the world lost its color swept over. Before he could react, the sword light had penetrated his body, bringing with it blood. Chapter 546. In the primitive land, the knowing destiny sword technique appeared for the first time in the human world. It absorbed the power of the four symbols' tribulations, and its power was raised to the extreme. It heavily injured Bodhi. Blood splattered between heaven and earth. The collapsed four symbols' deities continued to reform. In the blink of an eye, the four symbols reappeared with heavenly power. Bodhi was dyed red and his body staggered. His demonic body was heavily injured, and the Buddhist power rebounded. The Buddha and the demon clashed violently. With the protection of the Buddhist energy, Bodhi temporarily regained his consciousness. The indestructible body of the Vajra healed his injuries, and the wound of the god-sealing sword gradually disappeared. After a while, Bodhi opened his eyes and looked at the four symbols and the knowing destiny sword technique. He sighed softly and did not say a word. He took advantage of the temporary clarity and walked away. Bodhi, who had recovered his pure heart, was immune to all tribulations. The four symbols' deities did not stop him and allowed him to leave. Ningchen could not stop him in the middle of the tribulation. Mo Kuang's sword radiance soared as he fought the four symbols. The sky was filled with the sounds of battle. The azure dragon breathed. The vermilion bird spread its wings. The white tiger split the sky. And the black tortoise shook the earth. Even though the four symbols' deities had died, the world was still imprinted with the images of the four symbols. Every time a martial artist went through a tribulation, the images would descend. The first disaster of the three disasters stage was the fire of karma. The second disaster was the disaster of the four symbols. This was the path to perfection. Only by overcoming it could one be closer to perfection. The attacks of the four symbols' deities became fiercer and fiercer. The knowing destiny sword technique in the middle of the battle was activated to the extreme. He only attacked and did not defend. blood splattered everywhere, but his sword did not waver. All the supremes in the central state looked at the knowing destiny sword technique in the primitive land with complicated expressions. Perhaps the second legend of Xia Kingdom would appear in the human world soon. The spring and autumn sword technique was famous all over the world. Outside the primitive land, Bai Yunlian stood quietly. A pair of star-like eyes looked at the figure in the tribulation. Rays of brilliance flashed continuously. Compared to the demon race with long lifespans, although the human race's life was short, the speed of improvement was shocking. She remembered when she first met this young man. He was so weak in her eyes. She did not expect him to catch up to her in just a few years. If she wanted to defeat him now, she would have to pay an unimaginable price. Amethyst, he's leaving so quickly. Not far away, Bright Moon, who had just woken up, looked at the figure in the sky and said softly, "From the beginning to the end, Marquis Jiming has always been in front of everyone. He is the military counselor's only enemy, but also the military counselor's only friend," Purple Crystal said calmly. Ever since Jiming carried the battered Great Xia on his shoulders, he probably never stopped to rest. Today, with the 5 regions merged, the top cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were obviously weaker than those of the other 4 regions. However, Jiming Marquis of the Great Xia was still not weaker than anyone else. She had a feeling that one day, none of them would be able to keep up with the Marquis. In the sky above the primitive land, the battle between the 4 symbols and the knowing destiny state had reached its climax. Each of the 4 symbols controlled the origin of heaven and earth, leaving wounds on the knowing destiny state. However, the sword of the knowing destiny state was becoming more and more perfect. Returning to the void and entering the chaos, it was gradually approaching the only state. First form. The moment the sword was formed, a crack appeared on the space barrier of the only state. The first form of the 4 symbols deity sword technique was finally completed. One sword gathered the 4 symbols, and the sword waves swept past. The catastrophe of the 4 symbols was broken. Outside the primitive land, Mingyu saw that the 4 symbols deities in the sky had dissipated. She was delighted, but immediately felt a little scared. She subconsciously hid behind the purple crystal. She had snuck out. Would the bad guys scold her? Purple Crystal saw the fear in Mingyu's eyes and felt helpless. Maybe in this world, only the Marquis Jiming could make His Majesty afraid. After a while, outside the primitive land, the red light gathered and Ningchen appeared. He glanced at Bai Yunlian, who was waiting quietly, and nodded slightly to greet him. It turned out that the pair of eyes that he had felt familiar with was from the white flood dragon at the burial stream. He had not recognized Bai Yunlian and the white flood dragon. He was really stupid. "White flood dragon, you may not be able to kill me now," Ningchen said with a smile. He had angered the white flood dragon at the burial stream and made the half-year agreement. He had wanted to delay as much as possible, but he did not expect that it would be delayed for 4 years. "Where are you going?" Bai Yunlian did not reply and changed the topic. "Home to the East Divine Prefecture," Ningchen said softly. "I'll go with you," Bai Yunlian said directly without any embarrassment. Demons had their demons, and were simple and direct. Although he had entered the human world before, he could not learn how to live in the human world. "Why?" Ningchen narrowed his eyes and asked. Bai Yunlian looked at the completely destroyed primitive land, and a trace of sadness flashed across his face. He said lightly, "In the human world, I only know you." Ningchen did not say anything more, and walked to the other side. "Let's go." Bai Yunlian heard this and restrained his emotions and followed. Not far away, Mingyu saw Jiming walking over and lowered her head so much that she almost hid behind Purple Crystal. "Marquis," Purple Crystal said respectfully. "Next time don't let her fool around," Ningchen said calmly. "Yes," Purple Crystal nodded. "Mingyu, come here." Ningchen looked at the girl behind Purple Crystal and said. Mingyu heard this and walked out slowly. She lowered her head and said softly, "I won't do it next time. You've grown up." Ningchen reached out and rubbed the little girl's hair. He did not lecture her anymore. He had already taught her what needed to be said. The current era belonged to her and Chi-er. He would not interfere anymore. "Bad guy, you're not angry with me, right?" Mingyu secretly raised her head and asked softly. Ningchen smiled and said, "Let's go. I'll take you home." Hearing this, Mingyu's eyebrows curved as she nodded vigorously. "Daughter?" Bai Yunlian looked puzzled. "Something like that," Ningchen replied and did not explain further. Perhaps time had passed too quickly. He felt that the 7 or 8 years old girl had not grown up yet. "Bad guy, you don't know. That Xiaqi always wants to take my territory." Along the way, Mingyu hugged Ningchen's arm and chattered nonstop. She told him everything that had happened in the past few years, big and small. Naturally, she did not forget to complain about Xiaqi. Ningchen listened quietly. Big and small matters, he listened to them one by one. There was not a trace of impatience on his face. As she spoke, Mingyu's eyes reddened and tears fell unconsciously. She reached out and wiped her tears. She only showed her weak side to the young man beside her, but she did not want him to see it. Ningchen raised his hand and gently wiped away the tears on the little girl's face. He was careful and gentle. It was not a fortunate thing to be born as an emperor, especially when she had to carefully hide her identity as a woman. Perhaps only she knew the hardships involved. Chapter 547. Eastern Divine Prefecture, Great Xia Dynasty. 100 miles away from the imperial city, the four of them parted ways. Mingyu's eyes were filled with tears, full of reluctance. In the end, Mingyu and Zijing continued to head north. As an emperor, how could she be as willful as she was when she was young? Ningchen quietly watched Mingyu disappear from his sight. After a long time, he continued to walk towards the imperial city with Bai Yunlian. In the imperial palace, a guard ran in and knelt down to report. Xiaqi, who was correcting memorials, immediately got up and walked out of the main hall. In the imperial city, the imperial guards were constantly mobilized. The people were shocked, not knowing what had happened. In the distance, Red walked over. After 10 years, it was the first time he had returned. The imperial guards who had been waiting for a long time knelt down and said respectfully, "Welcome, Marquis. Welcome, Marquis. Welcome, Marquis." Batch after batch of soldiers knelt down and used their own methods to welcome Marquis' return. When the people in the city heard this earth-shattering voice, they all looked at the red-clothed young man walking over. Many of the older people recognized the Marquis from back then. Their expressions changed, and they immediately knelt down. Jiming Marquis, the most controversial Marquis in Great Xia. However, no one could deny that in the most difficult days of Great Xia, it was this handsome and calm young man who held up the entire Great Xia. "Grandpa, who is this brother?" A child who was not even 10 years old looked at the kneeling figure and asked curiously. "Marquis of Great Xia." Beside the child, the old man said softly. When the child heard this, his eyes flashed with envy and worship. He said, "When I grow up, I also want to be a marquis." The elder did not praise or blame him, he only said softly, "Wu Ho in Xia, what you represent is not power or glory, but responsibility and sacrifice. Without a will as firm as a rock, you will not be able to bear this heavy burden." In the 1,000 years of Great Xia, marquis after marquis, those who died of old age were few and far between. After the peace of Great Xia, it was the blood of many marquis. For 1,000 years, no one retreated. In the Battle of Gods, many marquis of Great Xia were killed, and became the most painful day in Great Xia. It was because of this that the lords of the 9 cities had the courage to rebel. Fortunately, Jiming Marquis was still alive and had single-handedly suppressed all the rebellions. In the imperial city, after kneeling, there was an unprecedented silence. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Only the sound of footsteps clearly fell into everyone's hearts. "Get up." Hongyi stopped 10 steps away. Yes. The kneeling commoners and imperial army soldiers received their orders and stood up. At this moment, the sound of carriages came from behind the group. Dragon guards quickly followed them over. Ningchen shifted his gaze and looked forward. A gentle look flashed across his calm face. "Master." When the carriage stopped, Xiaqi pushed away the people who were supporting him and walked forward. Unconsciously, tears welled up in his eyes. Men do not easily shed tears, even more so for emperors. Ning Chen patted the former's shoulder and said gently. It turned out that they had really grown up. Xiaoqi nodded and put away his excitement. He said, Master, come back to the palace with me. Today, I'll hold a welcoming dinner for you in the palace. No need. Ning Chen smiled and shook his head. I don't have much time left. I just want to spend more time with your imperial grandmother. As for the welcoming dinner, there's no need. When Xiaoqi heard this, he wanted to persuade him again. But in the end, he did not say anything. Let's go. It's getting late. Also, let the soldiers return to their positions. Ning Chen said gently. Xiaoqi nodded. He turned around and gave the order for the generals to leave. Not long after, the imperial army soldiers left. Ning Chen and Xiaoqi walked away. On the road, the two of them walked in front. The imperial guards all followed behind them. They were very clear that with the Marquis present, no one in the world could hurt His Majesty. When they approached the palace, Ning Chen stopped and looked at Xiaoqi, who was as tall as him. He said softly, Go back. Don't delay the matters of the court. Xiaoqi was reluctant, but he knew his master's temperament. He could only return to the palace for now. Ning Chen watched Xiaoqi enter the palace, then turned and walked towards the imperial mausoleum. When he passed by the manor of the Marquis of Jiming, Ning Chen paused for a moment. In the end, he did not enter and continued walking. In the imperial mausoleum, in front of the Zhongsun mausoleum, Red Clothes walked over. At this moment, he returned to being ordinary. He was no longer Jiming, no longer the world-famous sword art peak. He was just a wanderer, who had left home for many years and returned alone. Empress, I'm back. Looking at the mausoleum in front of him, Ning Chen knelt down and said softly. The bleak autumn wind blew a faint chill. His tired heart temporarily calmed down. At the same time, in the homeland of West Buddha, on the desolate great wilderness, the celestial pride disappeared in a flash. The celestial corpse that brought Jiming back from the heavens beyond heaven was patrolling west. The phoenix that had been chasing after it was gone. Between the safety of Ming Yu and the whereabouts of the celestial palanquin, Ning Chen had to make a choice. He went to the primitive land first to save Ming Yu's life. On the Tianfu planet, on the third day after Jiming left, the Palace of Seven Kills rose from the ground and rushed into the sky. It also walked on the starry sky road. No one knew where it was headed. After Yin Yuntian left, the younger generation on planet Tianfu all let out a sigh of relief. That huge mountain had been pressing down on them, blocking out the light of everyone else. The word heavenly genius could only dance for one person. In the Tianxiang dynasty, Xiao Libi took away all the ancient books on mechanisms and formations. He left a few simple words for the emperor of the Tianxiang dynasty and left again. 10 days later, after handing over 30% of the Star Soul Iron, the Pill Pagoda finally met its most terrifying opponent. The honorable swordsman of the Tianfu Holy Land came personally. His seemingly ordinary sword became the Pill Pagoda's most terrifying nightmare. The honorable swordsman attacked and cut the Pill Pagoda in half. Honorable Zhenyang was furious and fought with him. The result was without a doubt. Honorable Zhenyang lost miserably. Honorable Dong Xin came later, but was also defeated by the only sword in the Tianfu Holy Land. Just as the Pill Pagoda was forced into a corner, the Grand Pagoda Master, who rarely showed himself, finally appeared and barely managed to stop the honorable swordsman. The battle between the two alarmed the entire Tianfu planet. While they were amazed by the Grand Pagoda Master's shocking cultivation, they were even more shocked by the honorable swordsman's strength. The battle reached its climax. In the destructive airflow, a fairy-like figure appeared and blocked the two. The Tianfu Holy Land star venerate, Chao Tianqi, appeared. This godlike woman was deeply imprinted in the hearts of everyone on the Tianfu planet. She was truly above the honorable realm. She was an absolute existence that transcended the boundaries of the mortal world. In the face of such an opponent, the Pill Pagoda had no choice but to submit and hand over all the Star Soul Iron. After this display of power, no one in the world dared to resist. They all took the initiative to send the Star Soul Iron to the Tianfu Holy Land. Xiao Libi returned to the Tianfu Holy Land again, and continued to read all the ancient books on formations and mechanisms in the Tianxiang dynasty and the Tianfu Holy Land. In the Star Soul Life Sea, the unfamiliar planet was getting closer and closer to the Tianfu Holy Land. This meant that there was less and less time left for them. Destruction and rebirth all depended on the final battle. After Chao Tianxi returned to the Tianfu Holy Land, he didn't leave. He stood in the depths of the Tianfu Holy Land day and night, refining the blazing star soul iron gathered from the entire Tianfu Holy Land. Tian Xiang carved the formations he found in the ancient books onto the star soul iron. He did it again and again, day and night without stopping. On the Tianfu Holy Land, from the nobles to the commoners, everyone still lived as usual. They didn't know that the Tianfu Holy Land's calamity was right in front of them. Tian Xiang and Chao Tianxi concealed the news that the planet was about to collide with the Tianfu Holy Land. People's hearts were hard to predict. This kind of thing couldn't be made public. If it was denied, the entire Tianfu Holy Land would fall into chaos. Before the apocalypse, rules and etiquette would be completely abandoned by the fearful people. If someone pushed it in the dark, the Tianfu Holy Land would be finished before the planet even descended. At the same time, in the homeland of West Buddha, Changling, knowing Destiny's main body woke up. He had lost his cultivation and had just recovered from his injuries. His body was still weak, but his consciousness was much clearer. Seeing this, the noble woman breathed a sigh of relief. If her negligence caused knowing Destiny's main body to never wake up, then she would regret it for the rest of her life. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him with the same face, but completely different aura. After a short pause he understood. Changyu? Ning Chen asked. My name is Changyu, the noble woman of Changling. Changyu is just a name my avatar came up with for convenience, the noble woman replied. I didn't expect the noble woman to also cultivate the art of 2 transformations. Ning Chen sighed softly. The 5 regions were originally one world. Although the Eastern Divine Land separated from the 5 regions 30,000 years ago, many cultivation methods were not lost. My current body has reached the peak of perfection. I cultivated my avatar because I wanted to break free from the shackles of the Dragon's Gate when my 2 bodies merge again. I wanted to break free from the shackles of the Dragon's Gate and reach the legendary realm above supremacy, the noble woman explained. Did you succeed? Ning Chen asked. My avatar has reached perfection and is stabilizing its realm. With the help of the life scroll, when my 2 bodies merge, there shouldn't be any rejection. I have a 30% chance of reaching the realm above supremacy, the noble woman replied. 30%. Ning Chen murmured softly. It's not low anymore. The noble woman nodded. It was indeed not low. In the entire world, for tens of thousands of years, no one had taken this important step. One could imagine how difficult this step was. If the noble woman has any other needs, just say it. I only hope that if the noble woman really takes this step one day, you can tell me if the realm above supremacy can bring people back from the dead, Ning Chen said. Hearing this, the noble woman sighed inwardly. Her expression was very serious. If there really is a way to bring people back from the dead, as long as the noble woman can do it, even if I have to give up all of Changling, I will help you once. Many thanks, Ning Chen replied. Ji Ming, I have trapped you for nearly 20 years. Now the promise between you and me has been fulfilled. It is up to you to decide whether to leave or stay. However, at this point, the noble woman hesitated slightly and continued. Your current body has lost its cultivation. It is too dangerous to leave now. The phoenix body is already searching for a way to bring people back from the dead. You have the 4 scrolls of the heavenly books and the merit of saving the world. If you can put aside everything and focus on cultivation, your progress will not lose to anyone. The path to immortality is hard to find. Rather than placing your hopes on immortality, why not try to ascend to immortality yourself? Chapter 548. In the northwest of the imperial city, in front of Zhangsuan's tomb, Hong Yi had been kneeling for 3 days. On the 3rd day, autumn rain fell from the sky, covering the lonely imperial mausoleum and drenching Ji Ming's clothes. A wanderer who had left home could only return to the side of his elders. Only then could his tired heart find temporary peace. Ji Ming did not know his own fate. He had walked for too long and was covered in hardships. In the distance, a beautiful figure appeared. Her starry eyes flashed with a strange light. In her eyes, he was a despicable, shameless, stubborn, persistent human who never knew how to give up. This was the first time she had seen him like this. It turned out that he also had a weak side. After 3 days and 3 nights, everyone in the imperial city had returned. However, no one dared to disturb him. Xia Qi came several times and looked at his master kneeling in front of the tomb. In the end, he did not go forward. However, there was one exception. On the 3rd day, when the sun was about to set, she slowly walked over. Xia Xinyu, the most beautiful woman in the Great Xia 10 years ago. 10 years later, she was still the same. "You're back." The gentle words were like the most ordinary greetings between friends. The two of them had gone through countless trials and tribulations. They had gained a lot, but lost even more. "Yes." Ningchen nodded. Xia Xinyu stepped forward and gently wiped away the autumn dust on the tomb. Then she asked calmly, "When are you leaving?" "Tonight." Ningchen replied. "Take care. If you're tired, come back." Xia Xinyu said softly, "Yes." Ningchen nodded once again and agreed. "I won't disturb you. Accompany mother well. If fate wills it, we'll meet again." After that, Xia Xinyu did not stay any longer and walked away. The two of them passed by each other. It was like a portrayal of their lives. If they missed each other, it would be difficult to make up for it. The sun set and the moon rose. Stars filled the sky. The person under the moon slowly stood up. Outside the imperial mausoleum, the 6 marquises had returned. They gathered together and waited quietly. In front, Xia Qi looked at Hong Yi, who stood up in front of the tomb. Marquis Kong Yu, Marquis Anling, Zhang Sun Yunxian, and the 3 new marquises all bowed respectfully. Of the previous generation of Marquis of Great Xia, only Ji Ming was left. He was the only protector of Great Xia after the war of sending off the gods. He deserved their respect. Now is your era. The future of the Grand Xia will depend on you to protect it. Don't disgrace the glory of the Marquis, said Ningchen calmly. Yes, the 6 replied respectfully. Master. Xia Qi stepped forward, his eyes filled with reluctance. Ningchen looked at the little prince who had already grown up and said with a calm expression, Qi as the emperor, your every word and action is related to the rise and fall of the entire dynasty. You have grown up and have to learn to take responsibility. Everyone has their own path. Master has done his duty in the Xia dynasty. In the future, you can only rely on your own efforts. Remember, don't go against your original intentions and treat the world well. Xia Qi silently memorized every word in his heart. A moment later he said softly, Master, is it right or wrong to start a war for Great Xia? Ningchen sighed softly and said, Do you think it was right or wrong for Fan Lingyue to attack Xia in order to bring northern Meng out of the barren north? Wrong, said Xia Qi quietly. Right and wrong, most of the time, it depends on one's standpoint and one's heart. Fan Lingyue has always hoped for peace and prosperity in the world. I once asked her if her world included Grand Xia, and she said of course. I have never doubted her words. Even before she said those words, millions of people in Yanggui City had just been slaughtered. Speaking up to here, Ningchen looked at the 6 Marquis and calmly said, Ideals, methods, and reality, how to balance them is your problem. War is definitely wrong, regardless of the reason, victory or defeat. The people will always suffer. However, in this world, war has never stopped. Northern Meng was defeated, and Fan Lingyue used her life to pay for the sins of the world. If you really think it is necessary to start a war, then you must have the courage to bear all the consequences, and not just put the consequences on others. Thank you for your advice. The 6 bowed again and said respectfully, Qi, your master is leaving. We will meet again someday. After saying this, Ningchen walked out of the imperial tomb and headed west. He was dressed in red under the night, but his footsteps never wavered. Where are you going? Bai Yunlian appeared and asked calmly. The homeland of Western Buddha. Ningchen answered. Okay. Bai Yunlian answered softly and didn't say anything else. In the heavenly province planet, Chao Tianxi, who had been refining star soul iron day and night, didn't rest anymore. He was a one-star venerable, and he was willing to do everything for the future of the heavenly province. The vitality and spiritual energy of the heavenly province sacred land had started to dry up, and it was still spreading in all directions. Countless people panicked and looked in the direction of the heavenly province sacred land. They didn't know what the godlike star venerable was planning. In front of the star soul life sea, the sword venerable stood quietly, looking at the restrictions set up by the Nether King. This was the heavenly province's last chance. They could only succeed and not fail. The collapsed celestial realm was the only weak point of the Nether King's barrier, and it was also their only hope. As long as they could forge the star soul flowing fire, even if the entire heavenly province sacred land was destroyed, it would be worth it. Time passed day after day. In the heavenly province sacred land sealed by Chao Tianxi, a giant creature appeared. It looked like a phoenix, but it wasn't a phoenix, and it looked like a beast, but it wasn't a head. Its huge body occupied more than half of the heavenly province sacred land. Its whole body was black, and there were formations engraved all over it. Its unparalleled pressure was shocking. The star soul flowing fire, which was made by gathering the resources of the one-star star, gradually took shape. On the heavenly province planet, many human supremes felt the terrifying pressure from the heavenly province sacred land. They all came to the heavenly province sacred land, hoping to get an explanation. However, only the sword of the sword venerable welcomed them. Before the restriction of the heavenly province sacred land was truly opened, the news that the heavenly province sacred land would be hit by a life-great star couldn't be leaked. Sword venerable, do you think you can stop everyone by yourself? Venerable Zhen Yang of the Pill Tower stepped forward and asked coldly. Why not? The sword venerable said calmly. How arrogant. Another human supremacy stepped forward and said in a deep voice. Just as the two sides were about to fight, starlight gathered in the void, and an illusory figure appeared, blocking the two sides. Star venerable. Everyone bowed respectfully, not daring to act rashly. I know your doubts, but this is a serious matter, and it's impossible for everyone to know. You can choose 3 representatives to enter the heavenly province sacred land, Chao Tianxi said calmly. When the human supremes heard this, they fell silent for a while. They knew very well that they couldn't really barge into the heavenly province, sacred land, with a star venerable guarding it. Moreover, there was also the ruthless sword venerable here. Although it was difficult to kill him at the Great Completeness realm, it didn't mean that he couldn't be killed. It wasn't difficult to choose 3 representatives. The Pill Tower, Tiandu Mountain, and a top sect each sent 1 person to follow the sword venerable into the heavenly province sacred land. The rest of the human supremes waited quietly outside, looking at the mountain-like giant in the heavenly province sacred land from time to time. They couldn't hide the fear in their eyes. Not long after, the human supremes of the Pill Tower, Tiandu Mountain, and another sect walked out. They looked at the crowd and sighed. Go back. You will know the answer in a few days. The 3 of us have to stay to help the star venerable complete the star soul flowing fire. So we won't go with you. Chapter 549. In the homeland of West Buddha, knowing destiny had appeared. In the past 4 years, he had been forced into the sea of demonic wheel by various sects in Central State. He had chased the palanquin into the Immortal Palace, then went to Outer Sky, and finally returned to Central State. The palanquin had gone through a cycle, and knowing destiny had followed along for several seasons. Ning Chen was very sure that the woman in the palanquin was Ghost Girl, but he still didn't understand why. Immortal corpses had existed since ancient times, but Ghost Girl hadn't lived for more than 100 years. Ning Chen wanted an answer. There couldn't be 2 Ghost Girls in the world. There must be a reason that he didn't know. West Buddha was the holy land of Buddhism in the 5 regions. The Light Supreme of Tianfu Mountain, the West Jade Lord of West Jade Mountain, and the Supreme Bodhi of the Central State of the East were all peak human supremes. including the demon Buddha of the Demon Temple. There were 4 known supreme Buddhas in the entire homeland of West Buddha. There was no doubt that West Buddha had fewer human supremes than Central State, but the surviving supremes were almost all at the peak. Their combat power was extremely terrifying, and the difference in strength between the 2 regions was even. In a sense, the homeland of West Buddha was perhaps the most prosperous cultivation ground in the 5 regions. Bai Yunlian didn't like this place because she hated all the bald donkeys. Not long after they arrived in West Buddha, they were lucky enough to meet someone they knew. Or rather, they were unlucky enough to meet someone they knew. Falling Star. Unlike last time, the person being chased this time was the opposite. It was young Master Luo who was in a sorry state. It seemed that he had fled for countless days and thousands of miles. The person chasing after him was a woman in a green shirt. She had a pretty face and a cultivation of the half-martial highness realm. Her eyes were filled with anger, as if they could spit out flames. Seeing this, Ning Chen immediately turned and walked in the opposite direction. Friends were meant to be tricked. He liked tricking others, but he didn't like it when others tricked him. He knew Falling Star's talent and strength better than anyone else. When they were still in the 5 calamities, this guy was already in the 3rd calamity. Now that more than a decade had passed, his cultivation was probably at the peak of the 3rd calamity, or even demigod. With the Star Streak bow in hand, the woman couldn't have chased him to such a sorry state. The only explanation was that this guy had done something guilty and didn't dare to fight back. Knowing destiny, just as Ning Chen was about to turn and leave, Luo Xingchen's eyes lit up and he called out. Ning Chen heard this and walked even faster. You know each other? Bai Yunlian asked in confusion. I'm not familiar with him. Just pretend you didn't hear him. Let's hurry up and leave, Ning Chen replied. White Cloud nodded doubtfully and stepped forward to follow him. Jiming, you ungrateful guy. Have you forgotten who helped you out in Zhongzhou province? Luo Xingchen shouted at the top of his lungs as he dodged the attacks of the woman behind him. This time, no matter how thick-skinned Ning Chen was, he could not pretend that he did not hear anything. He turned around and looked at Luo Xingchen, who was beaten up to the point that he did not dare to fight back. He did not hide the gloating in his eyes as he said, Luo Xingchen? What a coincidence. I didn't see you just now. I'm sorry. Why are you still in a daze? Help me, Luo Xingchen shouted as he retreated dozens of meters. When the green-robed woman saw that Luo Xingchen's helpers had arrived, she immediately became vigilant. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at the 2 people not far away. She was unusually alert. Miss, I'm not familiar with him. I'm just passing by. You can continue, Ning Chen said without any regard for friendship. Fuck you, Luo Xingchen cursed anxiously. He knew that this guy was unreliable, but he did not expect that he did not even have the intention to pretend. When the green-robed woman heard this, she really believed it. Hence, she started fighting with Luo Xingchen again. 2 weirdos. Ning Chen was delighted. Luo Xingchen was definitely not a good person. Now that there was someone who could restrain him, it was really a great blessing in the world. Jiming, weren't you forced into the demonic Will See? Why did you come out? Luo Xingchen dodged the woman's palm power and turned his head to ask curiously. It's a long story. I'll tell you when I have time. But you, why are you being hunted down every day? Ning Chen asked casually. It's a long story. If you don't help me, you'll have to collect my corpse, Luo Xingchen said as he dodged the palm power again by a hair's breadth. Don't worry. I'll help you find a good place to bury it, Ning Chen replied unmoved. I've made a bad friend. Luo Xingchen smiled bitterly. These guys from the Divine Prefecture would not shirk away from big things, but would not do small things. Why was it so difficult to find someone to help him? Let me ask you something. Is there any news about immortal corpses patrolling the Western Buddha homeland? Ning Chen asked. No. Why are you asking about this? Luo Xingchen was confused. This legend was so ancient that it scared people to death. There probably weren't many people who knew about it anymore. I've seen the woman in the palanquin. She looks exactly like the ghost woman, Ning Chen said seriously. When Luo Xingchen heard this, his expression froze. He raised his hand to stop the green-clothed woman's attack and said, "Miss Luo, I have something important to discuss with my friend. Can we put aside the grudge between us for a while? We've already fought for so many days." "A little while won't make a difference, right?" Luo Fu frowned. After thinking for a bit, she nodded in agreement. When Ning Chen saw this, he helplessly shook his head. "This is..." Luo Xingchen walked up and looked at the woman beside the former. "Bai Yunlian, a friend," Ning Chen introduced. Luo Xingchen nodded and didn't ask any more questions. His expression became serious as he said, "Tell me more about the palanquin and the ghost woman." Ning Chen recounted his experiences from Immortal Palace to the Heavenly Manor planet. The only thing he felt was that everything was a mess. He couldn't find the source. Could it be that the ghost woman is the same as you and also cultivates a body dual transformation technique? Luo Xingchen frowned. "No, the ghost woman's 3 souls are complete. It can't be a clone," replied Ning Chen. Luo Xingchen sighed. This matter really was bizarre. It wasn't just this matter. From Immortal Palace to Sky Beyond Heaven, there was nothing normal about this brat. If you can't figure it out, then go find the answer yourself. "Right, give me some of your source immortal jades," said Luo Xingchen. "What are they for?" Ning Chen's expression immediately became vigilant. He only had a few pieces, and they were obtained after exhausting himself. This entire time, he hadn't even been willing to use them. What else can they be used for? "Of course they're for cultivation. Do you think they can be used for food?" said Luo Xingchen unhappily. "You still haven't reached the consummate realm. So what are you using immortal jades for? That's too wasteful." Ning Chen's face was full of unwillingness. "I'm stuck at the peak of the 3 calamities, so I wasn't in a rush. But recently, I've taken a fancy to something. Taking it like this is a bit dangerous. Once I reach the half-step exalt realm, it'll be much more reliable," said Luo Xingchen honestly. "How many pieces do you want?" asked Ning Chen. 1,000. Luo Xingchen didn't even think about it. "Scram! Why don't you want 10,000? Cursed Ning Chen. 800. I can't go any lower. If I can't break through to the half-step exalt realm, and something unexpected happens, you really will have to collect my corpse," said Luo Xingchen. 600. Take it or leave it." Ning Chen clenched his teeth. "Deal." Luo Xingchen decisively nodded. Ning Chen waved his hand, handing over the mountain of immortal jades with a pained expression. "Use it sparingly. If there's anything left, return it to me," said Ning Chen. "Don't worry, I'll definitely return the rest." Luo Xingchen waved his hand and put away the immortal jades. "Return it. Dream on. One more thing. In these 4 years, have you seen Sword 2 Mu Qianshang and the others?" asked Ning Chen. "I coincidentally saw Sword 2 once. But that guy's brain is fried. He said something about helping his senior sect brother finish his unfinished path. As for the others, I don't know where they ran off to." After the 5 regions merged, these people's martial arts progress was fiercer than the last. "A group of madmen," Luo Xingchen said in displeasure. Back then, he had been the one with the highest cultivation, while cultivation and battle power were not equal. The cultivation he was most proud of might not even have an advantage. How could he feel comfortable? The divine lands were restricted too severely back then. It was difficult to even enter the Khanate realm. Now that they are no longer restricted, how can these martial arts geniuses not be excited? Ning Chen said helplessly. "Forget about them. I almost forgot. Isn't your main body in the Chongling ancient land? Why don't you ask that Chongling female supreme? She should know more about the homeland of West Buddha," suggested Luo Xingchen. "Makes sense." Ning Chen nodded. He glanced at the woman in green who was still waiting nearby and said, "Miss, we have finished discussing our matters. You can continue." Hearing this, Luo Xingchen's expression changed. He did not even say goodbye. He gave the former a middle finger and ran away. Seeing this, the woman in green immediately chased after him. Ning Chen looked at the two's departing figures and gave a blissful smile. Those friends who had entrusted their lives to him back then had all walked their own paths. Luo Xingchen's experience was also bumpy, but he was the most carefree one. He could see that the woman in green he met this time was a simple and kind person. He hoped that he would cherish this hard-won fate. He hoped that all lovers in the world would find their way together. After standing for a long time and waiting for the two figures to disappear, Ning Chen looked at Bai Yunlian and said, "Miss Bai, let's continue on our way." Bai Yunlian nodded. He remembered the young man from before. So they were really friends. The emotions between humans were really complicated and difficult to distinguish. "Why did you not help him?" Bai Yunlian asked softly. "That girl cannot hurt him. Also, he will solve the trouble he caused himself. If I help him, I will be helping the evildoer," Ning Chen answered. "Are you not friends?" Bai Yunlian asked in puzzlement. "Friends are used to block blades, not to block trouble. If the one in trouble today was me, that guy may run faster," Ning Chen answered. "I do not understand." Bai Yunlian shook his head and said, "You have stayed in the world for a long time, and will slowly understand. In this world, everyone will encounter all kinds of people and matters. Some will add flowers to brocade, some will send charcoal in snowy weather, and some will hit someone when they are down. Like that guy just now. If there is trouble, I will not find him, because he will hide faster than anyone else. But if there is a day when my life is in danger, the first to save me will be him, and vice versa," Ning Chen said calmly. Chapter 550. In the homeland of West Buddha, in an area where few dared to enter, two figures appeared and walked over. Humans, Buddhas, and demons were not allowed to enter the forbidden land. Those who trespass would die. Chongling was the top sect in this forbidden land. It had existed since ancient times, and was one of the most mysterious inheritances in the homeland of West Buddha. For hundreds of years, the female supreme rarely appeared in the world. People of Chongling rarely stepped out of the forbidden land. For such a mysterious and powerful inheritance, no sect in the homeland of West Buddha was willing to provoke it. Ning Chen and Bai Yunlian walked into the forbidden land and immediately felt an unusual presence. The death restriction was activated. Undercurrents rose. Killing lights flashed past and threatened to kill the two. The forbidden land lives up to its name. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. He formed a sword with his fingers. Supported by phoenix energy, he swung his sword and scattered the undercurrents. "Trespassing the forbidden land, you will not live." At this moment, the wind and clouds in the 9 heavens changed. A powerful presence descended. In an instant, gray air currents filled the area. The oppressive presence was so heavy that people could not breathe. "Supreme." Ning Chen frowned slightly. They were really unlucky. Emo Kwang appeared. His sword was extremely sharp after the second calamity. Emo Kwang met the palm that fell from the sky. With an earth-shaking tremor, Hong Yi took half a step back. His left hand formed a sword and broke through the air. Julie Zun flipped his palm and shook the sword finger. The two sides collided. The undercurrents surged endlessly, and the dust rose hundreds of feet. "Not bad." Julie Zun had a strange expression. He retreated and gathered the undercurrents. Just as he was about to start the battle again, light gathered in the void. An illusory figure appeared and stopped the battle. "Julie, these are my guests. Please let them pass." Julie Zun made a sound of surprise. He waved his hand to disperse the undercurrents. He looked at the woman who appeared in the void and said calmly, "Female Chong. When did Chongling interact with the Yao? There is no need for Julie Zun to worry about Chongling. Come with me," the female supreme said softly. Ning Chen nodded and followed along with Bai Yunlian. Julie Zun did not stop her. Looking at the two words, light flashed through his eyes. A top swordsman of the world, a supreme of the Yao, and the Chongling female supreme. How much had she hidden? In the ancient lands of Chongling, the noble woman came with two people. In a chaotic hall, she sat cross-legged in plain clothes. Formation scripts appeared around her and sped up the passage of time. "Did he say anything?" Ning Chen asked as he gazed at the main body before him. He was able to discern that the main body had entered into closed-door cultivation, and it would be impossible for the main body to emerge in a short period of time. He said that he will no longer care about the affairs of the mortal world. He will continue to cultivate until he reaches the immortal realm. As for the matter of finding a way to revive the dead, He will leave it to you, the female supreme said softly. Sure. Ningchen nodded. His demonic body had already stepped onto the demonic path, and his main body was doing his best to ascend to immortality. As for his main body, he would continue on his own path. As long as he could revive the ghost girl, he would try any method. In addition, Miss Ruoxi has begun to cultivate, the female sovereign said. Ningchen frowned. How is that possible? Ruoxi's talent was not as good as his, and she had already missed her best years. It would be difficult for her to embark on the path of cultivation again. It is not an ordinary martial path. Even if she succeeds in learning it, she will not be too strong. However, Miss Ruoxi does not like fighting. This method suits her. When we meet in the future, it will definitely give you a surprise, the female supreme said calmly. Thank you, female supreme, Ningchen said seriously. No need. As they spoke, a familiar figure walked in from outside the chaotic hall. Her powerful aura had already reached perfection. Changyu, Ningchen said in surprise. Wrong, it is the female supreme. The female supreme and the female supreme walked together. For the first time in 100 years, they were one again. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. So Changyu and the Chongling female supreme were the same as him. Ming, how did you get out of the demon wheel sea? The female supreme asked in confusion. I chased after the palanquin. Ningchen briefly recounted what had happened in the past few years. Originally, he did not plan to return so quickly. There were existences above the supremes in the sky beyond heaven. They might be of help to him in reviving the ghost girl. However, the truth of the immortal corpses was something he urgently wanted to find out. If he missed it, he did not know when he would encounter it again. Female supreme, you are cultivating 2 bodies. Are you preparing to break through to the supremes? Ningchen asked seriously. Yes. The female supreme nodded. Ningchen was silent. With a wave of his hand, Mo Kuang appeared. In the outer heavens, I fought briefly with the heavenly mansion star Venerate, who was above the supremacy level. I managed to remember some of the laws of heaven and earth. I can't help you much, so I'll use this battle as a reward for your help, Ningchen said. Hearing this, the female supreme's eyes flashed with a strange light. She slowly said, Thank you. The two walked out of the chaotic hall. Ningchen looked at Bai Yunlian, who was quietly waiting not far away, and said softly, Miss Bai, please help me. Bai Yunlian thought for a moment. With a flip of her hand, a white bead slowly rose from her dantian and flew out of her mouth. Return it to me after the battle. Bai Yunlian waved her hand and sent the inner core out. Seeing this, Ning Chun and the female supreme's expressions froze. The inner core of a demon venerable. Humans cultivated the sea of energy, while demons cultivated the inner core. Although they were different in form, their essence was the same. Losing it would destroy their cultivation. The female supreme sighed inwardly. For tens of thousands of years, the demon race had been declining day by day. It was not without reason. Compared to the unpredictable humans, the hearts of the demon race were much purer. Ningchen was silent and did not say anything. He originally only wanted to borrow a portion of his demon essence. He did not expect Bai Yunlian to give away her inner core. In the next moment, a phoenix cry sounded. The figure of a phoenix appeared and swallowed the inner core. It spread its wings and its aura rose rapidly. Thunder roared in the sky, but it was disturbed by Chongling's array formation and could not descend. Ningchen stepped forward. The phoenix essence around him merged with the white dragon's demon essence. He raised his hand, and the surrounding void collapsed. He had actually reproduced the move of the Heavenly Palace Star Sovereign. Void destruction. Once the words were spoken, the world would cry out in grief. The power was different, but they had similar characteristics. Expanse after expanse of space collapsed, reaching 100 zhang away. In the void of destruction, the female supreme stood still like a mountain. She was seriously experiencing the power of the move. Prison circle. The moment the void was repaired, the laws changed again. Ningchen used his phoenix essence and demon essence to forcefully control the laws of space and reproduced the prison circle move. The female supreme took a step forward. At this moment, she was trapped in a cage and could not move. 2 moves had passed. Just as Ning Chun was about to activate the last move, he suddenly stumbled. Blood flowed out. The cold aura exploded and attacked the phoenix body. The female supreme's expression changed. She stepped forward and sent her vital essence in to disperse the cold aura. The phoenix body belongs to the fire element and clashes with the cold aura. It cannot be forced. Also, such laws are useless to me. It does not matter if I look or not, the female supreme said softly. Ning Chun nodded tiredly and said, "This is all I can do. Female supreme, I hope you can step on the path to immortality as soon as possible." "Many thanks," the female supreme earnestly said. Due to the limitations of her realm, knowing destiny's laws were still very immature. But to her it was still a great help. After all, she had already cultivated to the peak of perfection, and could see things that knowing destiny could not. It had to be said that although this young man's cultivation talent could not be considered top-notch, his intelligence and comprehension ability were extremely terrifying. Even if he didn't understand, he could still clearly remember everything. Knowing destiny, I haven't heard any news about the immortal corpses you spoke of. However, according to ancient legends, the immortal palanquin once appeared in the westernmost part of the Western Buddha's homeland. You can go take a look, said the female supreme calmly. Ning Chun nodded in agreement. At the same time, the heavenly mansion planet had been affected by the flowing flame star. The entire sacred land had been turned into a land of death. The once boundless heavenly mansion sacred land was now covered in withered trees. It was desolate and desolate. Above the sacred land, the mountain-like object's aura became more and more shocking. The celestial body had set up a formation, and runes were engraved on it to increase the power of the divine artifact. Not far away, the sword venerate looked at the flowing flame star that was gradually taking shape. The battle intent in his calm eyes became harder and harder to hide. He knew that once this object was completed, the war would begin. The resources of one star were limited, so the experts of the inner realm wouldn't welcome them. Of course, they were the same. In order to obtain more resources for the heavenly mansion, this war was inevitable. Now, it all depended on whether the star venerate could break the underworld king's boundary between the inner and outer realms. Celestial body, how much longer? Xiao Tianqi walked over with a serious expression. 3 months, said Xiao Bieli calmly. Xiao Tianqi nodded and looked at the black-clothed man. He slowly said, "Sword venerate, the war is about to begin. You are the sword of the heavenly mansion, and the war god of the heavenly mansion. Remember, no matter what, you can't lose." "I understand." The sword venerate nodded. "Star venerate." At this moment, the void stirred, and the human sovereigns of the 3 large sects appeared. They respectfully bowed. "How did it go?" Xiao Tianqi turned around and asked. "Everything is ready. We're just waiting for the flowing flame star to be completed." Venerable Dong Sun stepped forward and answered. "Thank you for your hard work," said Xiao Tianqi softly. "This matter concerns the rise and fall of the heavenly mansion. We're just doing our part," said the human sovereign of the heavenly capital mountain. "Venerable Dong Sun, does the pill tower have pills that can help people temporarily improve their cultivation?" Xiao Tianqi looked over and asked. Venerable Dong Sun frowned and said, "With your cultivation as a star venerable, and the help of the flowing flame star, you should have at least a 90% chance of breaking the underworld king's boundary in the celestial region. Why should you take the risk of a backlash and use pills to improve your cultivation? When it comes to the underworld king, we can't be too careful. This is the heavenly mansion's only chance. We can't let any accidents happen." Xiao Tianqi sighed softly. The pill tower has a fallen immortal pill, which was left behind by the pill tower's first tower master. It can help a human sovereign reach the superior sovereign realm in a short time. However, the side effects are equally terrifying. After 1 hour, the person who consumes it will be crippled. Star venerates are already superior sovereigns. I don't know whether it will cripple their cultivation, but they will at least be severely injured. Please reconsider, Venerable Dong Sun said seriously. Xiao Tianqi was silent. After a moment he slowly said, "As long as we can break the underworld king's boundary, it's worth it." Chapter 551. In the West Buddha's homeland, knowing destiny had appeared. This was truly the end of the world. Just like the east of the divine prefecture, everything was desolate. The 5 regions were different from the other planets. This was a world created by the Nether King, and it was surrounded by a sea of chaos. After searching for several days, Ningchen walked to the end of the world and looked down at the endless chaos. A moment later, he took a step forward. "Miss Bai, you should stay. There's no need to take this risk with me," said Ningchen when he saw that the white flood dragon was about to follow. "If there's danger, I'll leave," said Bai Yunlian calmly. Ningchen didn't say anything else. He stomped his foot and charged down. In the primal chaos, waves of fog rolled. The lower one went, the lower the visibility, and the more difficult it was to go down. After walking for a long time, a 10-meter-tall divine tree appeared in front of them. Chaos gathered around it, and it was sparkling and translucent. It was dark gray and extraordinary. Ningchen stopped and looked at the divine tree in front of him. A trace of emotion flashed through his eyes. When chaos gathered, everything was possible. Back then, Mubai had come to the end of the world to wait for a sword. He had sat there for countless days and nights. Fortunately, Mubai had managed to wait until the end, and in the battle with the Nether King, he had obtained his sword. Ningchen walked forward and waved his hand. Mo Kuang appeared. Just as he was about to disperse the divine tree, a weak consciousness came from the divine tree. It was full of pleading. "Oh!" Ningchen felt the fluctuations from the divine tree's consciousness, and his eyes narrowed. The divine tree had its own consciousness? "Let it go," said Bai Yunlian softly. Bai Yunlian said softly, "It was even more difficult for a soulless object to gain sentience than the demons. This divine tree had lived for at least tens of thousands of years to reach its current state." Ningchen nodded and waved his hand to put away Mo Kuang. Since it had gained consciousness, he would let it go. Everything had the right to live, and there was no need to kill it. The two of them continued forward, and before long, they disappeared into the chaos. From that day onwards, no one knew the whereabouts of knowing destiny and the white flood dragon. The 5 regions were still as calm as ever, with turbulent undercurrents. In the homeland of West Buddha, in the Celestial Palace and the Demon Temple, the 2 strongest supreme beings of the mortal world had completely disappeared after being defeated by the legend of Xia Kingdom. In order to avenge their humiliation, they tried their best to break through to the Supreme Being realm. In the ancient land of Chongling, New Chong joined together and sealed off Chongling. She started to charge for the legendary path of treading immortals. On the Tianfu star, 3 months had passed. The astral soul-flowing flame had finally been completed. The sound of war was close at hand. Star Venerable. On the Holy Land, 5 figures half knelt down to see the Star Venerables off. Tianxiang, Sword Sovereign, starting today, the future of the heavenly manners is in your hands. No matter what, you have to fight for a peaceful place for the people of the heavenly manners, said Chao Tianqi calmly as he looked down at the 2 of them. Yes. Xiao Bieli and Honorable Sword replied respectfully. Venerable Dongxuan, Venerable Tiandu, and Venerable Arcane, thank you for your help over the past few days. However, this is only the beginning. For the future of Heaven's sanctum, please let go of all past grievances and gather all your strength for the upcoming war, said Chao Tianqi seriously. Yes, the 3 Supremes replied. Everyone, I hope there will be a day when we meet again. As he spoke, Chao Tianqi flipped his palm and activated the Holy Land's secret formation. Instantly, the entire heavenly manners shook violently. Countless formation runes rose, and a strange light shone, illuminating thousands of miles. In the next moment, the mountain-like astral soul-flowing light rose like a kunpeng spreading its wings and soaring into the sky. The blazing flowing light flashed through the starry sky and quickly flew towards the broken celestial domain. The celestial domain was less than 10,000 miles away. Chao Tianqi took out the fallen immortal pill given to him by the pill tower and consumed it without hesitation. Ha! With a shout, Chao Tianqi dissolved the medicinal power in his body. His body shone with red light on the starry sky path. He had reached the peak of supremacy. In the blink of an eye, The 5 regions were right in front of him. The peaceful land looked so beautiful under the starry sky. Knowing that his actions would cause the people of the inner realm to suffer, Chao Tianqi's eyes flashed with an apologetic look. However, the future of the heavenly manors was in his hands. There was no turning back. "I'm sorry." Under the starry sky, no one heard the inaudible apology. A moment later, Chao Tianqi's expression became firm again. His body was refined to the extreme. Countless formation runes awakened on his astral soul flowing fire. The red light was extremely bright. His 2 bodies flowed together, turning into a divine sun that crashed into the Netherworld King's barrier above the 5 regions. In the broken celestial domain, in the only weak point of the Netherworld King's barrier, a red divine sun fell from the sky. In an instant, heaven and earth collapsed. The entire world quickly fell apart. In the inner realm, the moment the divine sun fell, everyone was terrified. They all looked at the sky, not understanding what was happening. After a moment, the most terrifying scene occurred. The divine sun crashed into the Netherworld King's barrier. The 5 regions shook violently. Mountain floods erupted and tsunamis struck the sky. Huge ravines spread across the 5 regions. Mountains rose from the ground and mountains fell into the sea. In the central region, the southern tomb, the eastern region, the western lands, and the northern plains, countless pairs of eyes opened. The experts of the mortal realm looked at the divine sun that was falling from the sky with unconcealable shock in their eyes. Above honorable, the terrifying pressure was as if the king of hell had come again. In the divine prefecture of the eastern region, tens of millions of people looked at the sky and trembled in fear. The apocalyptic divine tribulation from more than 10 years ago was still vivid in their minds. Could it be that the king of hell had come again? Jiming Marquis King Haowu, where did you go? The human world is in trouble again. At this moment, everyone in the eastern region knelt on the ground and trembled in prayer. They prayed for the return of Jiming Marquis, and that the heroes who sent the gods away in the past would appear again. In the northwest of the imperial city of Xia, in front of Zhangsuan's tomb, Xia Xinyu gently wiped the dust off the tombstone and remained silent. Mother has passed away. Will you still care about the rise and fall of this world? In the heavenly mandate palace, Xia Qi suppressed the shock in his heart and looked to the west. Master, will you come back? At the same time, in the 4 extremes that had long been sealed, under the influence of the terrifying collision, disasters occurred. Luan Fengchen, Meng Xuanji Wangyu, and the others looked to the sky with a flash of worry. It had only been more than 10 years since the catastrophe of the Netherworld King. Was there another catastrophe in the divine prefecture? Are all my old friends still doing well? Above the 5 regions, the divine sun fell and drowned the celestial realm. The star soul flowing fire collapsed and was completely destroyed in this terrifying collision. Streaks of fire fell from the sky like meteors at the end of the world. It was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The celestial realm dissipated, and the Netherworld King's enchantment also collapsed under this terrifying attack. It turned into starlight and disappeared in the starry sky. The brief moment of brilliance changed everything. Above the 9 heavens, the Netherworld King's enchantment that had protected the world for countless years completely collapsed and became a thing of the past forever. In the divine prefecture, in front of the star soul life sea, Xiao Bieli looked at the scene that changed the fate of the 2 stars. After a long time he said slowly, "Honorable swordsman, activate the divine prefecture's resources. Also tell the world the truth. Prepare to go to war." Understood. Honorable swordsman nodded and turned to leave. 10 days later, the news that the divine prefecture was about to be destroyed spread through the various sections. For a time the world was shocked. The Pill Tower, Heavenly Capital Mountain, and Supreme Mystery Palace, the 3 strongest inheritances of the mortal realm, confirmed this news. There was no longer any doubt, and the entire divine prefecture fell into a state of panic. The divine prefecture issued an order to the world. 4 human sovereigns appeared, and in addition to the martial god of the divine prefecture, the divine prefecture's sword sovereign quietly observed the attitude of the various sections. The Pill Tower, Heavenly Capital Mountain, and Supreme Mystery Palace expressed their willingness to obey the divine prefecture's orders. The Tianxiang dynasty also expressed their stance. Then, the Seven Sword Mountain, Nightfall Palace, and more inheritances chose to submit. In front of the general situation, no one dared to resist. 10 days later, the human sovereigns of the various sects came to the divine prefecture once more and bowed their heads. In the divine prefecture, the Tianxiang dynasty set up a formation. The number 1 human sovereign displayed a shocking ability. He used the world as a layout to scale the heavens. "Everyone, let's go. Let's go greet the experts of the divine prefecture," said Xiaobieli calmly as he walked into the formation. Yes, the human sovereigns accepted the order and walked into the formation. In the next moment, the formation flickered, and the dozen human sovereigns disappeared. They left the divine prefecture. In the central continent of the inner realm, one figure after another appeared in the sky. Each of them was a human sovereign. Their terrifying auras merged together, causing the entire central continent to tremble. The Zhao family, Grand White Mansion, Whitefoot Academy, and the other 3 sects all looked up at the sky in shock. "Sword Sovereign," said Xiaobieli indifferently. When Mu Chang'e heard this, he stepped forward. He waved his hand, and an ordinary sword appeared. However, the moment the sword appeared, the winds and clouds of the 9 heavens changed. Thunder rumbled and filled the sky. A world-shocking sword slashed out, accompanied by wind and thunder. The most terrifying sword slashed through the land for thousands of miles, flattening hundreds of rivers. After that sword, Mu Chang'e put away his sword and turned around. "Friends of the inner realm, cherish your last moments. In 3 days, the war will officially begin." With that, Xiaobieli revealed a smile. Light spread out from his body, and he disappeared with everyone. The first wave hasn't even subsided when another wave rises. In Whitefoot Academy, Iqingqiu sighed. This time, it was a real war. These people were probably just the vanguard. However, even these people were a disaster. Was there anyone in the central continent who could stop that terrifying swordsman? What worried her the most was whether or not that human sovereign was still alive. If he hadn't died in the collision just now, then the 5 regions would truly be in danger. Legend had it that above the human sovereign was the immortal realm. An existence that was half a step into the immortal realm might be very close to the Nether King. The legend of the Grand Xia had entered the sea of demonic wheel. The Marquis Jiming, who had once saved the human realm, had most of his cultivation crippled. Now would a miracle happen in the human realm? At the same time, in the Zhao family's east wing, the young woman in purple looked at the sky in silence. She couldn't stop these people. Perhaps he could in the past, but it was very difficult now. Moreover, she and the other sects had forced him to enter the sea of demonic wheel. Even if he had come out alive, how could he help the human realm that had betrayed him? Chapter 552. Heaven's sanctum had descended, and the 5 regions were in great danger. Sword Venerable Mu Chang'e's sword had shocked the world, and all the supremes were shocked. In Zhongzhou, as the leader of the various sects, the Zhao family, Zhao Liusu, sent a letter to the 3 sects, Bailu Academy, Taibai Mansion, and other major sects, inviting the supremes of the world to discuss the matter of resisting the foreign enemies. The supremes of the 3 sects, Iqingqiu, and other human supremes arrived as promised. Half a day later, the Taibai Mansion Lord also arrived, holding a pot of wine in his hand. His hair was disheveled, and he looked very dispirited. During the Battle of Guihong Sky Moon Peak, Taibai Prime was utterly defeated, and his Taoist heart was broken. His Taoist sword had never been unsheathed since then. The supremes of the various sects looked at the Taibai Mansion Lord's current appearance, and sighed in their hearts. They had all witnessed the battle back then. It was not that Taibai Prime was too weak, but that the legends of the swordsmen of the eastern region were too amazing. That kind of sword was not a sword of the human world. Zhao Liusu glanced at the people in front of her and said calmly, "Everyone, Tianji City has sent news that those people from yesterday are indeed from outer heaven. Moreover, the barrier above the 5 regions has been broken, and there is no longer any barrier between the 5 regions and outer heaven. Hearing this, the supremes of the various sects fell silent. They could not say whether it was fortunate or unfortunate that the barrier of the 5 regions had been broken, and their freedom was no longer restricted, and they could leave at any time. However, this also indicated that the strong cultivators of outer heaven could come to the 5 regions at any time. The war is about to begin. Everyone, I need you to make a clear statement, Zhao Liusu said seriously. Have the supremes of the other 4 regions responded? Bu Chuanxiu, the leader of the 3 sects, asked. The supremes of Nanling, Beiyuan, and Shitu have already stated that they will rush over as soon as possible. However, after the divine prefecture of the eastern region went through the great tribulation of Hades, the number of strong cultivators has decreased greatly, and it is very likely that they will not be able to participate this time. Zhao Liusu replied. There is no problem with the alliance, but who will be at the helm? Another supremacy of the 3 sects, Li Xiaoran, asked the question. Everyone please choose, Zhao Liusu said lightly. It's not that simple. This time, not only Zhongzhou, but also the other regions will have supremes. It will be difficult to choose a leader who will be trusted by everyone, Yi Qingqiu said calmly. The strong are respected, the lord of Taibai Prefecture, who had been silent all this time, said in a hoarse voice after taking a sip of wine. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. This was the simplest reason, but it was also the most convincing method. Among everyone present, Miss Liusu and the Manor Lord are the strongest. I don't think anyone can deny this. Before the experts from the other 4 regions arrive, the position of Alliance Head should be chosen from one of the 2, said Yi Qingqiu calmly. Alliance Master? The Taibai Prefecture Lord drank the wine in the pot, stood up, and walked outside. He said, I'm going to get some wine. I'll come back later. After the chief of Taibai Prefecture left, everyone shifted their gazes to Zhao Liusu. It was undeniable that although this woman was young, her strength had already reached the pinnacle of the human world. She was the most suitable person to be the representative of the central state. Does anyone have any objections to Miss Liusu temporarily acting as the alliance leader? Yi Qingqiu asked. No, said Bu Chuanxiu, the leader of the 3 sections. Ji Chuyu and Li Xiaoran also voiced their agreement. Whitefoot Academy's 3 sects expressed their stance, and the other sects' supreme beings didn't hesitate either, agreeing to this result. I won't decline the position of alliance head, but there's one more thing. As she spoke, Zhao Liusu looked at everyone present and said slowly, war is not something that can be decided by simple force. Judging the timing, scheduling, and arranging the troops are also the key. Everyone, is there anyone who would recommend the military counselor? Hearing this, Yi Qingqiu and the others fell silent again. In terms of combat strength, they were the strongest in the human world, but arranging troops, and scheming were not their strengths. We can choose a military advisor from the human world's imperial court who is good at this, suggested Li Xiaoran. No, experience and knowledge determine one's height. We can't give such an important position to an ordinary person who doesn't even understand the combat strength of a supreme being, said Bu Chuanxiu flatly. Venerable Chuanxiu's words are reasonable. If we make a wrong assessment of combat strength, it's very likely that we'll be doomed eternally. This person must be chosen carefully, said a supreme being from a great sect seriously. Since we can't choose one, let's put this matter aside for now. There's one more thing. Who can stop that swordsman from sky beyond heaven? Asked Zhao Liusu. Everyone fell silent. Right now this was the most worrying matter. Absolute strength could change the direction of the war. If they couldn't stop that swordsman, they would be in a very passive position. I'll do it. As he spoke, a white-robed Buddha walked over from the distance. After a few steps, he was in front of everyone. His black and white hair was dazzling, and he was both a Buddha and a devil. Supreme Bodhi. Everyone present recognized the Buddha walking over. While they were surprised, they could not help but feel shocked. Could the Buddha in front of them still be called a Buddha? Venerable, are you confident? Asked Yi Qingqiu worriedly. Amitabha. I'll do my best, replied Bodhi. Zhao Liusu thought for a moment, then said, "The first battle can only be won. It'll be difficult for the master to stop that swordsman alone. Venerable Chuanxiu, work with the master to stop him." "All right." Bu Chuanxiu nodded. "Also, that blue-robed man from yesterday is clearly their leader. Once the battle begins, kill him with all your might," said Zhao Liusu. "Understood." The crowd acknowledged the order. While the Central Plains sects were discussing how to resist the enemy, in the far west of the West Plains, two figures were constantly moving forward, searching for traces of the palanquin. "Something might have happened in the human world," said Bai Yunlian softly. "Yes." Ning Chen nodded and replied indifferently, yet his footsteps didn't stop in the slightest as he continued forward. Bai Yunlian didn't say anything else. She knew a bit about his past. Now, it seemed that he really wouldn't interfere this time. After walking for an unknown number of days, their surroundings still hadn't changed. As far as the eye could see, all they could see was a gray, chaotic fog. Behind them, the continent was gradually disappearing. The 5 regions, which were different from ordinary planets, seemed to have been lifted up by the chaos and floated in the starry sky. Seeing the young man's stubborn yet calm face, Bai Yunlian was even more confused. "Don't you regret giving up your life?" "This is my life," said Ning Chen calmly. "Human emotions are really complicated and difficult to understand." Bai Yunlian sighed. "Miss Bai, you've been cultivating for thousands of years. What's the result?" asked Ning Chen. "Becoming an immortal." Bai Yunlian nodded. "Why?" asked Ning Chen again. Bai Yunlian was startled. "No reason. This is your life. You and I just chose different paths. Actually, it's not that complicated, right?" said Ning Chen with a smile. Bai Yunlian nodded thoughtfully. Maybe she was thinking too much. After walking for another half a day, Ning Chen suddenly stopped. He looked at something blurry in the distance and narrowed his eyes. "Miss Bai, can you see what that is?" asked Ning Chen. "It seems to be a green coffin," said Bai Yunlian softly with a strange light in her eyes. Hearing this, Ning Chen moved his feet and quickly rushed forward. Bai Yunlian followed behind. She didn't understand why there was a coffin here. Ning Chen arrived in front of the green coffin. Suddenly, the surrounding ghostly chi surged. An immortal palanquin flew out of the primal chaos. The ghostly woman appeared and struck out with her palm. Ning Chen hastily retreated and summoned the green cauldron to block. With a loud bang, the primal chaos scattered and blood dyed the green cauldron red. Bai Yunlian was startled. She immediately brought Ning Chen 1,000 feet away from the green coffin. "How are you?" asked Bai Yunlian solemnly. "I'm fine." Ning Chen suppressed the injuries in his body and looked at the green coffin in front of him. A threatening light flashed in his eyes. The truth should be in that coffin. This wasn't the first time he had come into contact with the immortal palanquin. They had met several times, but the ghostly woman had never attacked him. Only this time, before he even touched the coffin, the ghostly woman had displayed shocking killing intent. His cauldron. In front of the green coffin, the ghostly woman looked at the green cauldron and took a step forward. Seeing this, Ning Chen's figure flickered, and he quickly put away the green cauldron. "Who are you?" Ghost Girl looked at the person before her and asked softly. "Ning Chen," said Ning Chen. "Ning Chen," muttered the ghostly woman. She shook her head and said, "No, it's not him." The immortal palanquin rang, and ghostly chi filled the air. The green coffin and the palanquin disappeared at the same time. Ning Chen's expression became anxious, and he immediately went forward to chase after them. However, he once again lost the direction. "It's not him," the voice echoed in the primal chaos. No one knew what it meant, and it was puzzling. In the boundless primal chaos, only Hongyi remained. She stood there feeling very lonely. In the distance, Bai Yunlian looked at the figure in the primal chaos and sighed. Was there really an end to the path he was walking? In front of the life sea of the heavenly sanctum, Xiao Bieli looked at the 5 regions in the distance. He stood there for 2 days and 2 nights. Mu Chang'e walked over and asked, "Tianxiang, have you found any traces of the Star Venerate?" "No, but with the Star Venerate's ability, it won't be so easy for something to happen. We just need to quickly win this war and wait for the Star Venerate to return," said Xiao Bieli calmly. According to my last observation, the number of sovereigns in the inner realm is about the same as the heavenly sanctum. Without the star venerate, this war won't be easy, said Mu Chang'e seriously. A comparison of strength on paper is the most useless. That sword strike I had you use wasn't just a greeting, said Xiao Bieli slowly. Mu Chang'e frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" "Throwing a brick to destroy jade," replied Xiao Bieli. Mu Chang'e narrowed his eyes and said, "Tianxiang wants to use me as bait to lure the sovereigns of the inner realm into a trap? However, this matter isn't simple. The sovereigns of the inner realm are definitely strong." "Strong? How strong are they?" Xiao Bieli smiled coldly. "Are they stronger than Tianxiang?" Mu Chang'e fell silent and didn't ask any more questions. Wasn't the reason they dared to start this war because of Tianxiang's existence? The heavenly sanctum's minister might not be as strong as Xiao Bieli, but on the heavenly sanctum planet, aside from the star venerate, the person that the various factions feared the most was Tianxiang, not martial god. Chapter 553. Central Continent, Guihang Sky Moon Peak, the place where the Eastern Region's swordsmen had fought the Tai School's chief. Today a figure walked out of the void. This person was the current leader of the Tianfu planet, the Minister of Heaven Xiao Bieli. First formation, Sword Sovereign opens the path and slaughters the world. A yellow scroll appeared in Xiao Bieli's hand. The moment he opened it, a black figure descended from the sky. Sword Sovereign had appeared in the 5 regions. He's here. In Central Continent, many pairs of eyes looked at the sky. 3 days had passed, and the thing they didn't want to happen the most had finally happened. Amitabha. A Buddhist chant was heard, and rain fell. Bodhi in a white robe walked into the sky and blocked the Tianfu Sword Sovereign. At the same time, a halberd shot into the sky like a dragon. The 3 leaders of the 3 sects, Chuanxiu, and the Buddhists, blocked the path of the swordsman. "Just the 2 of you." Mu Chang'e waved his hand, and an ancient mottled sword came out of its sheath. In an instant, wind and thunder filled the sky. As expected, the swordsman is the opponent I hate the most. Bu Chuanxiu snorted coldly. He took a step forward, and his halberd met the swordsman's attack. "Too weak." Mu Chang'e waved his sword and lightning gathered. The moment the sword and halberd clashed, endless lightning surged and engulfed the halberd. With a bang, Bu Chuanxiu retreated a few steps. His mouth was red. Just one move had injured him. Buddha is merciful. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, Bodhi raised his prayer beads. Buddhist light shone brightly, and the Buddhist world opened. First sword Buddha. With the Buddha world trapped, Mu Chang'e's expression didn't change in the slightest. He took a step forward, and the momentum of the heavenly fault sword in his hand changed. A pagoda appeared behind him, and a 100-story pagoda broke through the clouds. The phenomenon of the sword shook the world. With a slash of the sword, heaven and earth were destroyed. The Buddhist world shattered, and a Buddhist palm shook the heavens. Blood splattered and dyed the Buddhist robe red. Bodhi heart meditation complete tomorrow's chant. After losing, Bodhi gathered his Buddhist energy again. Immediately, rain fell, and Buddhist chants filled the sky. The swordsman's divine might was trapped. How can a half-demonized Buddha block me? Third sword in Yellow Springs. Mu Chang'e took a step forward, and the aura of the Yellow Springs surged out from his body. Raging waves of the Yellow Springs rose from his sword, and in an instant, the Yellow Springs fell into the world, drowning out the sound of Buddha. As the aura of the Yellow Springs entered his body, Bodhi let out a muffled groan. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. The Buddhist and demonic powers were in a balance, making it difficult for him to gather his full strength. Clang! The halberd arrived again. Bu Chunxiu tried his best to help, but Mu Chang'e used Ting Tian Ke again, and again to slash at the halberd. Too weak, too weak. Is this all you have? Or is this the only strength the inner realm has? Although he tried his best to restrain himself, he was unable to. Mu Chang'e grew more and more disappointed. The swordsman's sword danced faster and faster, becoming colder and colder. Pung! Bu Chunxiu's sword broke the halberd, and a terrifying wound appeared on his left arm. Blood splashed everywhere. It was a beautiful scene. When Bodhi saw this, he suppressed his injuries and stepped forward. He blocked the swordsman's sword with a flip of his palm, barely saving Reverend Chun Xiao. Ji Chuyu Li Shaoran, the two of you go and help them, said Zhao Liusu from afar. Yes. The two martial highnesses accepted the order and dashed into the battlefield in a flash. The four of them had joined forces to stop the Tianfu war god. On the grand sky moon peak, Xiao Libi's lips curled into a cold smile. The bait had worked. The second formation, the five sovereigns, luring the tiger away from the mountain. The scroll was opened again. In the distant battlefield, the void swirled and five powerful auras appeared again. They didn't help the Tianfu warlord, but dashed toward the sects outside the battlefield. Oh! On the other side of the battlefield, Zhao Liusu narrowed her eyes. Were the people of Sky Beyond Heaven really that confident in the swordsmen? This was the inner realm. They wouldn't lose to anyone in terms of the number of sovereigns. Xianzhen Muhua Chiwei, Yuxing Qingyu, it's your turn. Zhao Liusu calmly looked at the five sovereigns from the other three regions. Yes. The five sovereigns received the order and chased after the heavenly palace's sovereigns. Thousands of miles away, the two sovereigns clashed once more. The shockwaves shook heaven and earth. Even thousands of miles away, they could clearly feel it. The two battles began at the same time. The intense confrontation represented the two sovereigns' will to fight. The third formation, Dong Sun, Tian Du and Taixien Huang Quan. Gui Heng Tian, Yufeng, and Xiao Bieli spoke for the third time. Instantly, in the distant battlefield, Dong Sun, Tian Du and Taixien appeared. The tripartite formation that had been prepared for a long time was activated. An endless torrent of energy spiraled up around Subhoodie and the others, completely separating them from the battlefield. Bailey Li Shan Hong Lu, you three go break the formation, said Zhao Liusu. Yes, the three sovereigns of the central continent accepted the order and stepped into the battlefield. 12 sovereigns. Within the tripartite formation, Mu Chang'e fought 4 sovereigns with one sword. At the same time, he watched the situation change. 12 sovereigns had appeared in the inner realm. They were about to reach their limit. The fourth formation used Tian Xiang as bait. Split up and lure the enemy. Guihong Tian's tripartite formation rose again. Tian Xiang's aura erupted like a firefly in the night. It was so dazzling. Found it. At the back of the battlefield, gazes looked at Guihong Tian's tripartite formation. To capture bandits, capture the leader. This was the eternal law of war. Taibai Prefecture Lord, it's your turn. Zhao Liusu glanced at Taibai Prefecture Lord, who was drinking silently beside her. Lord Alliance Lord, look at me now. Can I still fight? Taibai Prefecture Lord drank a mouthful of wine and said casually, so what if you lose once? Who can remain undefeated for their entire life? As a sovereign, can't you even overcome this little setback? Said Zhao Liusu coldly. Taibai Prefecture Lord was silent. After a moment he sighed and said, I'll try my best. However, you don't have to put too much hope in me. I'm not much stronger than a cripple right now. After saying that, Taibai Prefecture Lord's figure disappeared. He quickly flew towards Guihong Tian's tripartite formation. On the scattered battlefield, there were many opportunities. The most crucial one was Guihong Tian's tripartite formation. Taibai Prefecture Lord appeared and slapped his palm down. Oh, it's just you? Xiao Bieli flipped his palm and blocked the attack. I didn't expect the leader of Sky Beyond Heaven to be so ordinary. Taibai Prefecture Lord retreated 10 steps and drank another mouthful of wine. Is that so? Xiao Bieli sneered. He waved his hand, and a purple sword fell from the sky. In the next moment his body moved, and his sword slashed out. Taibai Prefecture Lord used Yuan Qi to block the attack. With a bang he retreated 10 steps. A drop of blood dripped from his palm. A drunkard who has lost his martial soul. It seems like the inner world's forces are really exhausted, said Xiao Bieli calmly. Perhaps. Taibai Prefecture Lord didn't care. Then he rushed forward again, and attacked Xiao Bieli with a palm. Xiao Bieli waved his sword and blocked the palm. His battle strength was ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. Just at this moment, Zhao Liusu drew her dark moon bow. In an instant, dark waves gathered from all directions. A black arrow pierced through the sky and shot towards Guihang Tian's tripartite formation. Just now, I was wondering how you could kill me since you've exhausted your forces. Now, I know that you've lost this round. Xiao Bieli stabbed his sword into the ground. Immediately, an endless stream of swords soared into the sky. The terrifying might shocked everyone. Fourth sword, River of Forgetfulness. At the same time, the two sides used the same sword move. Tian Xiang and Sword Sovereign both used the River of Forgetfulness. The formation activated, and Tian Xiang disappeared. When he reappeared, he was beside Sword Sovereign. The same sword roared out. The three sovereigns and Bodhi were shocked. They wanted to retreat, but they couldn't escape. The sword flowed through the cracks. The four supreme beings blocked the attack, but they only saw residual red light that filled the sky. Two supreme beings fell, their souls scattered. Qiu Yu Xiao ran. Bu Chuanqiu was filled with grief. He let out a muffled groan as the sword pierced through his body. Blood spurted out. In this moment of crisis, Bodhi no longer suppressed his devilish qi. He pushed his Buddhist qi to the limit and used another Buddhist holy move. Bodhi heart meditation, Bodhi with a thought. The swastika spread, and Buddhist light illuminated the world. The tripartite formation was immediately shaken, and a flaw appeared. Bodhi quickly brought the heavily injured Bu Chuanqiu out of the battlefield. Sword Sovereign, their leader has appeared. In the final round, we'll capture the leader, said Xiao Bieli indifferently. Yes. Mu Chang'e accepted the order, and shot towards where the arrow had come from. Within the tripartite formation, Bai Li Li Shan and Hong Lu's roles changed. The Tianfu stars Dongxuan, Tiandu and Taishan sovereigns blocked them. At the back of the battlefield, Zhao Liusu's arrow missed. She immediately prepared to move, but it was already too late. Sword Sovereign's sword descended from the sky. This shocking sword was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. Zhao Liusu gathered the soul energy of 9 generations of Chosen, and the 9 wheels appeared once more. The imperial heavenly sword slashed through the 9 wheels. Zhao Liusu was forced back several steps, blood flowing out of the corner of her mouth. The sword was the only one, unrivaled in the world. The 5 regions' miserable defeat was close at hand. Just at this moment of crisis, a silver divine spear appeared in the distance. Boundless Buddhist energy was no weaker than a Chosen's. Mu Chang'e frowned and waved his sword to knock aside the divine spear. 2 women appeared in front of him. One wore Buddhist robes and was as calm as water. The other wore azure robes and was as beautiful as a painting. Friends from the outer heavens, rashly starting a war will only cause misery and suffering. Please retreat, said Bai Lingling softly. To the side, Qing Ning walked over to the divine spear and pulled it out. Regretfully, her master's Buddhist energy could only be used once. But to save one person it was worth it. If you want to negotiate, you need to have the appropriate strength. The 2 of you are too weak. The void rippled and Tian Xiang walked out. If they aren't enough, then what if you add me? As he spoke, the winds and clouds in the 9 heavens changed. Boundless sword currents fell like rain, slashing apart many battles. White clothes descended from the sky. His extraordinarily cold face was covered in the hardships of time. The Yaoguang dynasty's century-old sword god descended once more. It's you. Mu Chang'e narrowed his eyes. The Alcade king glanced at his juniors, and a trace of gratification flashed through his eyes. He calmly said, "You've already done well. Leave the rest to me." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.